Okay, Tammy, we started recording.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to Manhattan Community Board 1. This is our executive committee meeting. I'm Tammy Meltzer. I'm chair of Community Board 1. We operate by Robert's rules, so we will try and maintain decorum and move along as quickly as we can to be respectful of everybody's time and attention. We are starting the meeting tonight with a couple notes. Let me pull up my agenda as well. That's on the agenda. Our licensing committee did not ran out of quorum, so we will hear some of the resolutions that were proposed at licensing. And with that, let's take that away. I think there we go. Perfect. Jen, do you have a shared link to all the resolutions so people can ask questions? And do we have the applicants, if any, here?
We do, yeah. I'll share the link shortly on the chat. For the first item, we have the council, Barbara Kwan. I moved her to panelist, so I see her mic is unmuted. So Barbara, whenever you're ready to speak.
Hi, Barbara Kwan here for HHC Fulton Retail. We presented to the committee last week HHC Fulton Retail's intent to expand its current premises. They operated as 10 Corsa Como, and there was a retail space adjacent. They would like to take over that adjacent retail space and also change the menu. It's not going to be a high-end Italian location anymore. That did not do very well. The community seemed to want more of a casual eatery that was family friendly. So it's going to turn into a affordable, approachable comfort food place. But where the retail area used to be, there will be spaces where you can rent indoor lawns to play traditional lawn games indoors with 4 plots on the outside that are part of the licensed premise, not municipal property. So we presented, there were not many questions. The prior stipulations that were agreed upon were agreed upon. I don't believe there are any objections. And Jennifer, I don't want to misclassify, but I believe there were 8 votes for, none against, none abstained. And we just wanted to make sure, the same result was carried through to the executive committee. So I apologize if I'm not presenting correctly. I've just never been to this committee meeting before. But that's it.
Present as you normally would. We have the advisory comments from licensing and we'll take it from there, but please feel free to say as you would if you were in licensing.
Yeah, I mean, I will leave everyone with the sentiment that this is it's going to be a partnership with a few experienced partners in terms of how to conduct these types of indoor lawn games. The concept is, for the New Yorkers who don't have a backyard, you can come here and rent one and play some games with your friends. The menu is very approachable. The idea is, I believe Wiley Dufresne is behind the menu, but it's going to be high-end comfort food that you can hold in one hand while you play bocce in the other. Every presentation I've seen has sort of been about this, and the families can come during the day, and then in the evening it would probably be more, less of a family affair. But there's nothing wild or untoward planned for this space at all. It's lawn games on one side, fast casual dining, grab and go on the other.
Okay, let's open it up and go to committee and see if anybody has any questions for you. I see Frances Curtis has her hand up and then Paul Goldstein, so we'll go in that order. Frances?
Yeah, unfortunately, I got to the meeting after that was presented, but my question for her now is, are there any other properties or setups like this in existence now, or is this a test run?
This is probably the first one run by this group and by Howard Hughes Court. But when we were discussing the plan, they made a lot of analogies towards Royal Palms in Brooklyn, the shuffleboard place where you can rent sort of shuffleboard plots and have, a decent dinner at the same time. Just by way of comparison.
Besides bocce and shuffleboard, what else will be there, and how big is the area that you will be able to have? Is it similar to what they have like with the greens, or 4x4 space? Is it going to be set up like that?
I have to look at the diagram and try and see if I can make up the measurements, but I think it's similar to the greens. I think you need a little bit more space in the greens to play some of these games. And just to correct the record, I don't think they're shuffleboard. I don't think that's possible. I think I was told bocce and cornhole, and if other games of lawn game type interest come up, then they'd be amenable to it. But those are the two games I've heard.
Yeah, okay, because with my recollection of the space as it is, uh, in comparison to the greens and being able to give people spaces to have those kinds of activities, it looks like maybe you get like four units. How many units do they plan on having? Like how many family groups will there
Yeah, I'll
be?
have to pull up the diagram again. I apologize. I'm working
Okay.
on two screens, so it's taking quite a minute. It's like churning for me.
And I
But
wasn't there. I'm sorry, I
yeah,
missed
that's all right.
the meeting where you
The
showed me.
diagram is actually very clear. So I'd prefer, I don't know if I can share the screen or Jennifer, if you can share the screen of the diagram we shared the last meeting.
Yeah, I can blow it up in a minute.
Okay, I
yeah.
think that Francis would help you quite a bit to look at that space and see sort of how that space would flow. The idea is that when you reserve for 90 minutes and no more than 90 minutes. So you know when you're supposed to be there. And then there's ample
Okay.
space in the middle for sort of waiting and having a bite before your game. Or your reservation, for the plot. But I think seeing the diagram will be quite helpful.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, but I can't tell where the.
So if you look to the left bottom of the screen, you see 6 of the plots, 3 on 3 facing each other. Then you see 1 at the very top in their exterior seating area. And then you see the 2 at or I'm sorry, 3 at the very bottom. And then I apologize, my eyesight is not that great either, and this is pretty small, but it looks like there are 3 more at the bottom of the premise, if you can see that. So if you look towards the top, you see that there's like road seating, some tables, and then on the right side is the former 10 Corsa Como space where they're going to have ample seating as well.
Okay. Okay. It doesn't look very large to me. That's all. Maybe because of the space, the Costa Como space that's there, you're going to be using it to have for eating and also to have these private I think you said 6.
Well, it looks like 9 interior lawns. Yeah, it's not just the 10 Corsa
9?
Como space. 10 Corsa Como had the restaurant and then the adjacent retail. So it's that I started by saying that they're expanding into the former retail space, which was one lease to begin with, but they operated it differently. But they decided to just make it one uniform sort of licensed premise where you have games on one side and one side is more devoted towards eating and grab and go.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I don't want to take up too much time with
No, it's
this
okay.
because I wasn't there, but okay.
You good?
I'm good. I'm
All
good.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, you're next.
Okay, thank you. So you indicated that these spaces are only available to paying patrons, is that correct?
A space is available for anyone who wants to dine or anyone who wants to rent a lawn. But you can also enter the premise regardless of whether you have a reservation. But the reservation is designated for the green, so there isn't mayhem about who's playing on what green when.
Would you be willing to try to allow the community to have certain amount of time on in those courts without being diners? I mean, this neighborhood is very needy of open space, any kind of recreation.
Yeah,
So-
I do think that you can, the technical aspects of that part of the operation I'm not certain of, but I could certainly find out. But I know that you can reserve without dining on the other side. You can reserve the court or greens, whatever you want to call it.
I'm talking about without having to pay the fee also.
Oh, I don't know if that's part of their method of operation, but I certainly could ask.
Okay, yes, I would urge you and Howard Hughes to consider that. The community board has raised the need for active recreation space repeatedly in the workshops and in other forums. And you'll hear more about it tonight on a resolution on the 99-year lease extension. Tammy, can I just ask you a quick question?
Let's stick to this, Paul, and keep going. Because
It's related to all these applications coming before executive.
unless it's directly related to this one, we can talk about it a little.
If you could give me a chance to ask you that at the end, thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, anybody else have any questions? If you do not, I see no other questions.
I do.
Jen?
I have one more question. If it's appropriate, how much is the rental space going to be?
I do not know. They're still figuring that out. They're not slated to open until first quarter 2022, so I'm sure they're figuring that out.
Do they have any ballpark figure or anything we could, so we won't be overwhelmed when they say, oh, it's $100 for 90 minutes.
I will try and find out at present time.
Okay.
I'm trying to contact some of the operation folks, yeah. And I was
Okay.
just told that it's
Thank
not all reservation fee based, that there will be free opportunities as well.
Okay.
But you
So-
probably have to go through a sign up process.
Most likely, yeah. I mean, otherwise I don't know how they would track, yeah.
As wouldn't be normal.
Yeah.
Okay. Francis, any more questions? Or are we good? Francis? You good? All right, hearing none, let's continue on. Thank you very much. I think.
Sorry, yes, we're good.
All right, we have a choice. We can let all the applicants go and then try and group them, or we can have, Jen, can you tell me if the other applicants are here as well? So
Sure.
Anybody from 88 West Broadway?
Sure. Yes, we have the applicant for the next application with us.
And for 114 Franklin? I'm just trying to see how many of them are here.
114 Franklin, we do not. I don't see them here.
135 Reed?
No.
5 Beekman?
No, that's same applicant for those two items.
Perfect. 100 Church?
100 Church, yes, we do.
Okay. 133 Greenwich?
Yes.
Okay. 184 Dwayne?
We do.
Okay. And 399 Greenwich?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So let's kind of keep rolling through then. Let's do 88 West, and then what I think we'll try and do is take those who are not here. Hopefully the committee has read it and we can vote those together. We can do the first two together, and then we'll do those without one, and then we'll keep going. I want to try and go as efficiently as possible. Okay, 88 West Broadway, please.
Okay, we have the applicant here. Their name is Raphael. I moved them up as panelists. I'll be sharing their application on my screen in just a moment. Raphael, whenever you're ready to speak, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm here. You hear me?
Very well, thank you.
Hi, thank you.
Please proceed.
We're asking for a wine and beer license for our cafeteria, Mediterranean cafeteria on 88 West Broadway. We have about 14 to 16 seats, and as long as the street seating available, we have another 12 or to 16 over there. We're only asking for wine and beer because of for tourism, for the having schools and churches around us, and also for the idea of the business. We're trying to get some brunch business on the weekends and have some mimosas, and some wine and beer. And that's why we're asking for the license. We were on the meeting last week. That's it.
Right. Thank you very, very much. Does anybody have any questions for the gentleman from 88 West Broadway, please? Okay, fantastic. I see that. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Let's see, 114 Franklin Street. Jen, do we have anybody?
Checking right now. We do not still, yeah.
So for the committee, let's take a vote on the first two that we heard, and then we'll take the next three that we don't have. Are going to do it just in bundles. So we'll do those 5 together and then move to the next applicant just to try and make things move a little bit faster. So for the committee, we're going to go no's, abstentions, recusals, and otherwise I'll assume everybody else is a yes. So do we have any no's? You can feel free to unmute yourself and opine. Do I have any abstentions? Do I have any recusals? Fantastic. So that means 1 Fulton, 88 West Broadway, 114 Franklin, 135 Reed, and 5 Beekman have all passed unanimously. Let's go to 100 Church Street. And Jen, if you can pull up the paperwork and have the applicant, please.
Sure. We have the council here with us tonight for 100 Church Street. We have Donald Bernstein. Donald, whenever you're ready to speak, can I mute yourself?
Yeah, hi, thank you, everyone. This is an application for a private members club in the cellar of 100 Church Street. There is currently an approved members club on the upper floor at 100 Church Street, Nexus, which you and the State Liquor Authority approved a number of years ago. Down in the cellar, they also have some small space that they use for people to come hit golf balls in a simulated golf areas. There are about 7 bays in there. And it's the same members that belong to the club upstairs can come down and hit some golf balls. So we thought it would be nice to be able to have possibly some food and some beverages down there. So that space is applying for a license. It's very small. It's about 3,400 square feet. The maximum legal capacity is 50. The hours are 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. It is only background music. There is no outdoor space. And everybody that was in attendance at the committee meeting was supportive, and we thank them for that.
Did you have, since it's a basement space, do you have any intentions to pursue a street bed
No.
seating or sidewalk seating?
None. We couldn't. We're not contiguous to the street.
We don't know what the rules will say, as they famously say, Mr. Bernstein.
No, it's not really an eating drinking place. I mean, the idea for alcohol is if you want to have a corporate event and you want to have 30 of your employees to come down there and play some golf, we'd have some food, we'd serve some alcohol, and that's really what it's going to be.
Before I turn it over to Frances, who has her hand up, would you be willing to sign on the tip sheet that you would not be pursuing roadbed dining and sidewalk cafes?
I believe so, yes.
Thank you. Turning it over to Frances.
Okay, it's good to see you, Mr. Bernstein. You've been in front of this committee several times for properties like this, and at first I just thought that it was a nice little idea for these little private clubs, and I questioned and I had some questions about the membership fees and who was going to come and all that. I had questions floating around in my head. They were all answered when I saw this article in the news the other day that spoke to the fact that celebrities and people, rich people, are now looking to have these small kinds of venues in order so that they can be COVID safe. And they have a lot of these private clubs, I've noticed, have been popping up, particularly in Community Board 1, where the membership fee is exorbitant And no, you're not going to have any outside stuff because the people that go there want their privacy. It's going to be limited to a certain number of people. So I just say all of this for us as a community board to be mindful of this, because this is a new kind of venue that's been popping up a lot. I don't know if anybody else saw the article, but then when I saw the article, I realized what I had experienced on the committee in terms of recently there being a number of these quote unquote private clubs that are only for a certain number of people. So.
Do you have a question for him, Francis?
No question. No. Well, okay. Question. Yeah, how many more do you have? Do you have a lot more? I guess you can't answer that now, but.
No, Nexus has opened on the upper level, and then they had the opportunity to lease about 3,000 square feet in the cellar, and they took it for that purpose. I don't think Nexus is opening. And if I can just comment on the fees, I've done a number of these. I think this is only my third or fourth in Community Board 1. We did the Cipriani Club that's on the East River.
Right. They mentioned that.
Another
Yeah.
one, Maxwell Social in Tribeca. I don't know the exact membership fees of this club, but I can tell you that the clubs that I've done, the membership fees range from $2,500 to about $5,000 a year. So it is really not much more than going to Equinox, which is now, I think, over $200 a month. So I did not see this article. I'm very curious to read it, but these clubs are
a couple of days ago.
For the super. What periodical was it in?
It was in the Daily News a couple of days ago.
I'm interested in reading that because I've done a number of these members clubs and none of them have fees that are exorbitant. Not to say that it can't happen with some other clubs, but that's not these clubs.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, the article mentioned some other places and probably throughout Manhattan, but I just wanted to share that. Sorry. Yes.
We should have a dialogue about this in terms of community board and thoughts, but if it's not directly for this application because the agenda is super long.
Yes, okay, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to Justine. Next, is it specific to the application?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I think so. So I'm sorry that I'm confused, but I wasn't confused till Frances said what she said, because then I was like, what are they talking about? So the outdoor space, this is an application for liquor license for outdoor space?
No, this is an application for a liquor license for their basement space.
Basement.
Because they currently have a golf area, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Bernstein, this is now just to enable, you read it carefully, it is to enable them to serve alcohol in their golf area of the basement.
In the basement, so this is inside. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That was it. I was trying to understand. Thank you.
Oh, sweet, no problem. Okay, anybody else have any other questions? Fantastic. Mr. Bernstein, do you have anything else that you need or want to add?
No, just towards the fact that it's in the cellar, just so you know, the entrance is actually the entrance of the building. You go past the security gates and then there's a door that goes right down to the cellar.
Okay.
That's how you get it.
Thank you. So let's call the question. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Awesome. We'll go the same way we did before. Do I have any no's? Do I have any abstentions?
I'm going to abstain, Justine.
Thank you, Justine.
I am as well. Curtis abstention.
Curtis, perfect. Thank you. Do I have any recusals? Okay. Motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Bernstein. Let's go.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.
Have a great night.
You too.
All right. Next one is 133 Greenwich, her liquor license. Let's welcome our applicant.
Sure, we have our counsel with us, Jonathan Bing.
And Francis, just confirming, if you were at the meeting, so you can help lead if you would like. That would be fantastic.
I will do my best.
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Bing. The floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing the liquor license applications to go first in your meeting. I'm Jonathan Bing. I'm a shareholder at Greenbrook Trarick, representing 133 Greenwich LLC. 133 Greenwich Street is the site of the former Marriott Courtyard Hotel. We're applying for a tavern on-premises license. The license area is on the 6th floor. It's recorded background music only. The TVs that will be there will have no sound. They just will be showing pictures of fish and various other things, but no sound. The windows on the 6th floor do not open. The doors to the patio, outdoor patio, will be kept closed and not propped open at all. The hotel has no room service, has no mini bar, bars in the room. So this lounge is the only source of food or beverage for the entire hotel. And it will be, the plan is to keep it open 24/7 with the alcohol limitation subject to the vote of this committee. The committee last week voted for 10 p.m. closure of the outdoor space, and the hotel will close the outdoor space completely at 10 p.m. For any kind of service. They also recommended, I believe it was 2 a.m. 7 days a week. Jennifer can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was 2 a.m. for 7 days a week. We would, we also would agree to that and at that recommendation. I did want to mention that I quickly was looking at the proposed resolution. The resolution refers to 24 seats and 7 seats. It actually should say tables. This is a typo in your resolution where it says seats. It should be tables. They have 59 seats inside with 14 bar seats inside and 16 seats outside, which is all less than was allowed for the previous tenant. And in addition, we did not discuss the beginning hours for alcohol service at the meeting last week. On the notices to the community, the applicant requested a 7 a.m. Opening hours for alcohol service. Again, this is the only food service within the hotel, servicing business travelers, many from Europe. I should mention also that the applicant is Motel One, which is a 77 hotel chain in Europe. This will be their first American hotel, and looks forward to being part of the CV1 community. So we would request for the 7 a.m. hours for opening service. We request your consideration for that, and there was what was given on the notice.
Except Sunday.
Right.
Except Sunday.
Yes, ma'am.
Except for Sunday.
Yes, I am agreeing with you. That's correct.
Okay.
So, Francis, we can make those changes, right? Those are normal for what we do for licensing, I believe. So
yes,
yeah, we can make those changes.
Also, I'm sorry, outside seating where?
On the 6th floor. It's a terrace on the 6th floor.
Yeah, okay, so I live, not
I know, Pat. And
I live at 125 Cedar next to the firehouse, right around the corner.
That's why they got
this.
10 o'clock, Pat.
And yeah, exactly. And also those windows, I believe the discussion I had with Marriott when they were there was that they would keep their windows closed. I think there were windows that opened.
The 6th floor windows don't open, and they will not prop the door open, and they'll stop serving all service outside at 10 a.m. as you've recommended.
Okay, great. So we will not hear any noise, correct?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
One of the questions, I guess, that brings me back to where Pat is going on this is, as long as we're talking about the outdoor area, my concern is outdoor area at 7 a.m.
Oh, if you want to start the outdoor area later, that's fine. We just want the indoor. We want if the indoor can start at alcohol service at 7 a.m., but the outdoor, we want to start all service, a little bit later.
But I'm still confused. I thought the floor was enclosed, so I'm still not understanding this outdoor area.
No, they have a little terrace outside, Pat. Yeah.
It's a small terrace with 7 tables
area.
and 16 seats. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, okay, well then, people, 7 o'clock, people are sleeping. And so it needs to,
so we'd like
to start later. Because the building right next to you, 120 Cedar, the red building with O'Hara's in it and the Indian restaurant, there are people living there.
Yeah, and the windows face over
so it needs to,
patio, which
9 o'clock is fine.
Which was my concern. That's
Okay.
why they got 10 o'clock. But
why can't 7 o'clock is for people who are staying there to go eat breakfast, is what you're saying.
What he's saying, what we just said was that he would be able to do the later hours for the outdoor area,
Right,
and the early hours would be restricted to indoors only, no
indoor.
windows and no
That's
doors.
fine.
But just to make clear, that the indoor portion is going to be open 24/7, not for alcohol service, but it is the only food establishment in the hotel.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and that's fine, as long as they're indoor, windows closed, door closed, no one can hear you.
Absolutely. But the
Outside.
outdoor hours that you recommend, whatever you recommend is,
Yeah, I think 9
for
is
all
fair.
services fine with us.
Okay. All right, so I think that everybody's on the same page, correct? Pat, you
Yes.
good?
Yes,
I'm
Francis?
good, I'm good.
Yes, I'm good.
Fantastic. I don't
I
see
mean,
any
there are other
hands.
issues I'd like to talk about, but that's not for this application, like garbage and putting out the garbage. And they used to have this valet service and they blocked the street. So
So-
I don't know if that's gonna happen.
Let's have the applicant's attorney. Jen, are you hearing me? Lucian, set up a meeting so we can do quality of life stuff and a separate thing from this. Does that
Absolutely. As I said, this is the Motel One's first American venture. They want to be good neighbors. They want to be successful. And if you've had problems with the previous tenant, they don't want to repeat them. And
And I hope you guys know there's an 80-story building that's going up across the street from you.
yeah. So they will any
Right, there's a lot
concerns.
of construction.
Any
in that
concerns
area,
you've had with
period.
the previous Marriott tenant will be addressed and resolved to your
great.
satisfaction.
I'd love to do that. So you'll come to my committee then. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So on that note, not seeing any other questions, and Mr. Bing, with your assurance that you will reach out to the community board to set up some quality of life dialogue so we can be successful neighbors together. I'm calling the question. Do I have a second?
Second.
Perfect. We'll do as we did before. So we will do any nays? Any abstentions? Any recusals? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Bang.
Thank
Have
you
a
very
nice
much.
day. Okay, moving on. Next one is that was 184 Dwayne Street. And then right afterward
Oh,
is
yeah.
399 Greenwich. Okay,
Okay, we have David
Mhm.
Steingard for 184 Dwayne Street. David, I move you to panelist, so whenever you're ready to speak, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
good. Welcome, David. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. My attorney is trying to get on. It may happen, it may not, so I'll do the best I can.
No problem. We welcome
Okay.
you. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your time. So I'm the owner of Laughing Man Coffee. We've been in the neighborhood 12 years down on Dwayne Street. About right when COVID hit, we were a month away from opening a larger place next door that was going to offer food and indoor seating. Our intention at that time was not to offer beer and wine. Given the COVID circumstances and businesses changing, we're looking to do that now. What we're looking for is a waiver of the one bathroom rule because that wasn't the original design of the place. And now that it's all built and done, to go back and do that is quite a hardship to put that in. So we're asking the board for that waiver. That's the essence of the request. I'm happy to answer any questions, but.
So we'll certainly take questions, but explain to me something. So you've decided the expansion is done. You've decided to go back for a liquor license for that expansion, but you don't want to do the bathrooms that are required for that expansion?
No. Well, the place is open and we've been open for a year operating. When we designed it, there was no requirement for an extra. We have a handicap bathroom and all the requirements we have for any place without a beer and wine license. Now we're looking to do a beer and wine license, given that we need as much help as we can. And we believe, again, it's not changing the nature of the place. It's still a community all-day cafe. It's not a sports bar. It's not heavy drinking. It's a brunch and, community wine. And so it wasn't built for that. So now we're asking the waiver because the place is all built out and been operating for a year. And to put it in is quite the hurdle. So we're asking for the waiver.
I have many questions, but I'm gonna let
Yeah.
the committee. Yeah, I'm like, what? But I'll go through the committee and then I'll look back if my questions have not been answered. So for hands up, I'm going to start with Francis. Thank you, Francis.
This is the discussion that I came in on the meeting that night, and from what I heard, I am in opposition for this waiver, because from what I heard in terms of the rules and what's necessary to have that kind on the SLA, to have that kind of establishment, you have to have the 2 bathrooms. I'm sorry, it's going to be a hardship for you, but you changed your mind. You want to do something else that requires more accommodations in terms of a bathroom. And I'm not able to explain that part of it as well as Mark would have done if he was here, or even Susan. But I don't know if anybody else is on this call that was at the meeting longer than I was, that heard the full discussion. But if there are any other comments.
Well, I would just say that the SLA makes provision for a waiver. So even though it recognizes it has its rule, it clearly makes provision for a waiver.
Hey, this is Mark. I'm actually here.
Hi, Mark.
Oh, yay.
Sorry,
Okay.
I was on the cat rescue anyway.
Keep going, Mark.
Yeah, so,
Go, Mark.
yeah, that's a long story. It didn't work out. We got a kitten instead, but anyway. So, yeah, I was in and out of that meeting, on that night, but, basically what Susan was saying was that, and we just got to preface by that each of these waivers are considered on a case-by-case basis. There's no hard and fast guidelines that we're going by. So we look at each individual situation, and what Francis basically said was what I was going to say. So there's kind of really nothing new to add there, honestly. And it's a little bit self-explanatory in the resolution as well. So,
Again, so I would ask to consider the case-by-case basis. I mean,
Right. Let me ask
we've been in the
you.
neighborhood 12 years. We've been a good neighbor. We're a great spot in the community. The nature of the establishment is not changing. We're not interested in becoming a late night bar. We'd like to do brunch. It would help us stay in business in the neighborhood.
David, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You have roadbed dining as it is right now, the roadbed cafe part in association with the cafe. Would the alcohol service and the bar service include the roadbed as you currently have it?
No, in fact, we don't do any serving on the roadbed. There's no tables. That roadbed, which we've had for about 5 years now, was originally part of the street seats program that got folded into outdoor dining. We've been operating that for a while before the outdoor dining, and we don't serve out there. There's no tables out there. There's no covering. It's not meant to be an extension of our, sit down service.
Are you planning on pursuing open roadbed dining or sidewalk cafe dining in association with this portion?
No. And we're not pursuing sidewalk seating either.
And you'd be willing to sign that in a step?
Sure.
I think my only question, and I really do need to ask this seriously, because bathrooms seem to be one of those bizarre things in New York City that there are never enough of. Maybe it's because I'm a woman and I'm always on the one with the line, but that is one of those funky things that I'm not so sure I can get. I appreciate the waiver and why it would be important and adding it, because you're now having a liquor license and it wasn't anticipated, but there's no way for you to put in a second bathroom of any kind.
I mean, honestly, if there was, I think I would, but the place is fully built out. It's been designed with a particular concept. We use every you know, in New York, we use every square inch. That's why I'm asking for the waiver. There isn't.
Oh, hey, Tammy, this is Wendy. I'm having trouble raising my hand, so you can come back to me later, but I want to ask a question.
I'm actually, your timing is perfect. Go ahead, Wendy.
Okay. I just wanted to make a comment that, you know, I go in there a lot and I understand the idea about the space limitations. And the other, I guess this is more of a comment. I know someone who's actually has been working for over a year during COVID trying to get the building inspectors to come and finish off a bathroom so they can finish off something that's happening in their apartment. The building department is way behind on everything. So even if the approval got done and you could actually find anyone to do the construction, it would take an enormous amount of time. So I actually personally would support going ahead and giving the waiver, because I think that, you know, this isn't a huge place. And I think one bathroom is not going to be a huge burden on people that are there. I mean, I'd feel differently if this was just an enormous, you know, place, but I also would agree that you are a good neighbor. And I also think that the outdoor seating there, I often see people that haven't bought anything at all that sit there. So, you know, I appreciate that as a neighborhood amenity, and you haven't converted it into, like most restaurants have done. You're not serving outside right now. So if, you know, I wasn't at the meeting, but those are my 2 cents. And I would say it's very difficult right now, even if you had a place to put a bathroom, to actually make that come together in a quick way. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Wendy. We're going to go to Betty Kay next, and then a member of the public, Victoria, has their hand up. We'll do Betty and then Victoria. Betty?
Excuse me, thank you. I'm speaking one as a bathroom freak. I've always looked to see where they are. From that perspective, I'm really glad that Wendy spoke. Given that they have an accessible bathroom, which means they have a bathroom, I'm hearing no comments from people like Wendy that it's not adequate for the group they already have. And there's no real change in the business other than on the menu, you can get alcohol versus just other drinks. I also would be in favor of waiving requirement. In this case, it would be a second bathroom. It seems reasonable that they could accommodate with what they have already.
Thank you, Betty. Anything else?
No, that's all. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Betty. We're going to move to Victoria. Jen or Lucian, if you could unmute Victoria. She is a member of the public.
And Tammy, Laura, I don't know how to raise my iPhone, but I also like to ask a couple of things.
Okay, Laura, I'll come back to you because I called for Victoria and she's on.
Hello?
Hi, Victoria. You're
Hello.
unmuted.
Hi, everyone. Look, my name is Victoria Hillstrom. I am a designer. I work on prototypes for stores. Some of my work is in Tribeca. Carlos above me is a famous architect and a nightclub operator. So we designed Automat in London. We've been in the neighborhood for many years. While I spoke out about very bad neighbor operators in the neighborhood, this is a very good neighbor. I also would be very much in favor of waiving this requirement. He's a very good neighbor, and I think that we should support him.
Okay. Victoria, thank you so much for anything else you'd like to add? Nope, I think you're good. All right, that puts me back to
Tammy,
Laura.
can I make a comment on it? Or
Nope.
someone else is going?
Laura Starr is next, and then Mark, I can come back to you. Okay. Laura?
Hi, I agree. I live across the street from you. I agree. You are a wonderful neighbor. That said, it seems like you have a lot of people patronizing the place. And if you have liquor, I think more people will want more bathrooms. So, but I guess my question is, I thought like before COVID, you guys were going to put in a restaurant. So when you were going to do that, didn't you have to have the 2 bathrooms?
So the idea was never for a full-on restaurant. It was more for an all-day cafe, sort of a menu that lasts all day, not so much, switching over to dinner. Maybe more like a Bluestone Lane type of concept or something like that. But that was our definition of a restaurant. So it was never going to be sort of formal, a formal dinner setting, if that's what you mean.
But
it doesn't answer the question that she asked.
Right.
It is.
She asked, was our original intention for a restaurant?
No, what she said, the original intention was expansion into something more of a restaurant style. Whether you're calling it a cafe or she's calling it fine dining is immaterial to the question that she asked. Was, did you plan for 2 bathrooms when you were doing that?
No, no. Because we didn't believe in it, it didn't necessitate it, our concept.
wait, so by code, you don't have to have 2 bathrooms?
No.
Like by building code?
No, everything we've done for the concept we had was definitely up to code, including the handicap bathroom that we put in.
So where does the 2 bathroom?
Because
Laura, it's Vicky. It comes based on occupancy rate.
And SLA and liquor.
No, if the building code dictates based on occupancy rate.
So
Mr. Steingard, by occupancy, how much is your occupancy increase for this change?
It has not increased at all. We're not adding any seats.
Okay, I mean,
then why are we asking for a waiver if you were approved? If the building code does not require a second bathroom, who is requiring the second bathroom and why?
SLA.
Why?
I wish my lawyer was here. That's what they require. But they make provision for a waiver, so.
Yeah, that's why it became before licensing.
because people are there drinking and need to use the bathroom, right? That's why.
More regularly,
Yeah, and again, I would say sorry.
Yeah, it's a different dynamic with liquor.
But this,
consider please.
But what I don't understand is when Laughing Man was originally.
Please? Can I finish, please? That's the consideration from the SLA, and I'd like to point out that the committee felt very strongly about not granting the waiver. And I know usually I don't like to say, but if you weren't at the meeting, it was a robust discussion on it, and the chair of the committee feels very strong about this. I should point out.
If I recall, the vote was 3 yes, 3 no, and 2 abstentions.
So.
Okay, but I didn't get to finish my question. So if the liquor board requires the 2 bathrooms, if you're serving liquor for a certain occupancy, and that was your original intent when you were planned before COVID, why didn't you just put in the 2 bathrooms? You would have had to do it. If this were like 2 years ago, you would have had to do that, right?
Yes, liquor was not our original intent.
When you were converting to a nighttime restaurant, like what I remember hearing is you were going to have a regular restaurant and serve liquor. It was going to be like
No. The original concept was an all-day cafe, hours 7 to 7, let's say. It was not a late night establishment, and beer and wine was not in our plan at that point.
And are you still?
Yeah, well, late night.
This is a chicken and the egg situation. So a lot of times when
Mark,
we have an applicant come here,
Mark.
I
asked him a question. Can you let him answer it for me, please? Mr. Steingard, your intention was not originally to serve liquor, and you were 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. What are your current operating hours going to be with the new liquor license?
Probably 10. Maybe I'll ask for 11, but that's it. It's not late hours, not a sports bar, not a,
Well, I appreciate what you're telling me, but there is this difference between an establishment that closes at 7 as a cafe and something that closes at 10 or 11 as a bar and cafe.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tammy.
Yes, I think there is. Our plan is to extend anybody who knows the cafe now and knows what we're about and the kind of community and atmosphere we'd like to bring. We'd like to extend that to a glass of wine at night. And for 12 years, as you heard, we've been good neighbors. We've built that. I'm asking for,
I'm not arguing that point, Mr.
Yeah.
Steingard. I've had
Well,
coffee there. It is a lovely establishment. The seating is nice outside. I am not arguing any of that with you. Please understand, I'm asking questions because it does change the nature of what we're talking about. It is a different thing if it's a cafe, like a diner is a diner, a cafe is a cafe, if it ends at 7 p.m. If it ends at 10 or 11 and alcohol is involved, I understand quite clearly where they are going for a different liquor need because of lifestyle needs. I mean, people aren't drinking as much normally at 1 in the afternoon as they are at 9 o'clock at night. So there's a combination of things that I think, we just need to ask, and everybody makes their own opinion and has a thought process. There's nothing contentious here. It's just about
no, understood. I only say that, yeah, absolutely. And I only say that to address your concern of, I also would like it to stay as mellow and as possible.
It's only
I mean,
one beer,
one
right?
other thing is, it's like right now, even without the liquor, people spill outside. Like, what's to prevent somebody from taking their beer or wine outside?
That was my concern too, Laura.
And also, if
Laws
there's
against
a
that,
line
aren't
for the
there?
bathroom, then they'll just go outside and pee on the street.
Okay, stop. Listen.
No, really.
All right, stop. There are people with hands up.
Okay, I'm done. I'm gonna go red again. Bye.
Because everybody's gonna get their own vote. So, heard, Jason, and then Colin.
Hey, Jason Friedman here. I just want to say, this seems like the type of application where we want to waive things to, this is exactly what a waiver should be used for good neighbors on blocks that are otherwise full of other places selling liquor. And, I just want to echo some of the other people that are in favor of doing the waiving that's necessary because of good behavior and being part of a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Colin, and then Pat Moore.
Just echoing Jason's comments, look, I don't know. I confess I don't know what the actual rules are. I think we should probably abide by them when we can. But at the same time, I'm imagining that there's going to be new jobs created with this expansion, which is always a good thing. And at the same time, I would like to go at great lengths to not be the community board that constantly argues with businesses that are trying to expand and create opportunities and jobs and revenue for the city when we can. So that's how I feel about it. I'm not in support of this, and I'll vote for it.
Thank you, Colin. Pat Moore.
And yeah, normally I'm someone who would say no, but in this case, we've heard from other neighbors who say they're good neighbors. There was no expansion involved. It's just a few more hours tacked on. It's only wine and beer. It is not liquor. Everyone keeps saying liquor. It's only wine and beer. And I don't think anyone who's a hardcore drinker is going to go to a wine and beer establishment. They're going to go to a real bar. So I am a female, and we all know what it's like to have to wait for bathrooms. But I think this is just not that case in this establishment, and I would vote in favor of it.
Okay. I think everyone's had a chance to go once. Although, Andrew, you got a check mark by your name, so I'm assuming that you don't want to raise your hand, but that was a yes. There is a resolution that...
I actually did. Sorry, Tammy, I did have my hand raised. I don't know why it's showing up as a check.
Okay, please go.
And I was just going to offer, look, I understand everyone's perspective on this. It seems like a lot of the commentary, not all of it, but a lot of it is centered around speculation of the patron experience. And I get that, but patrons will vote with their feet as well. If they don't like going to a place where they have an exorbitant wait to get to a bathroom, they probably will stop frequenting. And given everything else we've heard about the history here and that the SLA does provide a provision, this just seems like a case where maybe a provision or a waiver is appropriate.
That's well said.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. And yes, I don't know how that got to be a check mark, but thank you for speaking up. So we have
Tammy, can I clarify
to,
as representing the committee?
Exactly. That's exactly who I was calling on next. Mark is
the best. Thank you. So there's a couple of things here that we're missing. The criteria of a good neighbor really is not a factor here. That's all well and fine, but that's not a factor in considering waivers in this particular. There are other areas where we consider being a good neighbor, but this is not one of them. And you're kind of missing, and some of you brought up the point without even realizing it. It's like the chicken and the egg. Well, it's only a beer and wine license. A lot of times we'll tell a client that we have concerns about, why don't you take a beer and wine for 6 months and come back for an OP license, that kind of thing. So what if they only had one bathroom, and then they're gonna need a waiver every time? So it can also be used in a way of getting around the bathroom rule to have more space. So there's a reason why it's there. The dynamic is different when beer and wine and or alcohol or whatever you want to call it is being served, as opposed to just a coffee shop or a coffee restaurant. And that is why that's in there. Sure, they have the granted for the waivers, but in this case, we thought that it's not appropriate. So and you heard he had what the original plans were, or perhaps what the original plans were. So you can come. No, my original plan is not to have liquor. I only want one bathroom. Then a year later, hey, you know what? I want to have liquor, and then lo and behold, give me the waiver. So you can see a trend in that too.
Thank you, Mark. So the resolution is a negative resolution that came out of committee, but it was not voted on because you did not have quorum. So I'm going to do a straw poll.
Tammy, can I just ask one thing? I apologize to interrupt. I believe when it came out, it was 3 no, 3 yes, and 2 abstention was what I was told.
No, it was 3 yes, 3 no's, 1 abstention.
Abstention. So it was neutral coming out.
An abstention counts as a no, unfortunately.
Okay.
So,
Tammy, could I make one quick comment?
Yes, Paul.
I think the major job of the community board is to prevent, when these liquor license applications, is to safeguard the community and make sure that we don't, as best we can, allow premises to really disrupt a neighborhood. I really haven't heard much evidence that having only one bathroom would result in such a negative impact on the community. And I think we should consider the track record of the operator. So I think it's reasonable, and that's it. I'll let you move on.
Thank you, because now we're going to get to where I'm going. I think because it's here and we have to take a vote through here, I want a straw poll for the resolution to be, we're going to take 2 votes on this. One as was written in committee, which was a denial. So if you say yes, you are agreeing to deny. If that fails, then we're going to do a resolution and affirmation approving it immediately following.
Tammy, sorry, I raised my hand late.
I apologize, I didn't see it.
No, I just raised it recently, like mostly when Paul was talking. I have a question, and I guess it's going to give you an idea of where I'm going with it. I kind of agree with Paul, and I think that what Wendy was saying was also really relevant, because at the end of the day, it sounds like even if they were coming to us and saying, we want to build 5 new bathrooms.
I'm trying to get there, just
okay, good. Okay, so I guess what I was going to ask.
Wait and vote. Just
okay.
Wait.
Oh, okay, because I don't know what it's going to say. Because I was going to say if we just have them come back.
No, they're not coming back.
Oh, okay, not coming back. Okay.
And Tammy, saying yes is a negative. That's
saying
right.
Yes means we're voting against them, right?
What you have seen that has come to us
out
of committee is one that opposes
granting the liquor license.
It's not granting the liquor license. It opposes the waiver for the bathroom.
Got it.
Okay. So if what it says was opposes the granting of a waiver of the SLA requirement for a 2-bathroom rule for their cafe. A yes vote on this is a denial. A no vote means that you would want to give them the bathrooms. Does everybody understand where we're going?
You would want to give them
the waiver
of the bathroom.
to not require the bathroom. Okay? We're going to do it roll call. Lucian or Jen, can you roll call?
Sure, I can take the roll call. Okay,
Go.
I'll go. Oh, yeah, I'll start. Tammy,
I'm abstaining. Let the committee go.
Wendy,
No.
Mark,
Yes.
Justine,
Oh,
Jason,
I'm back to him when he unmutes. Keep going.
okay.
No.
No, okay. Paul,
No,
Trisha,
Excuse. Keep going.
Betty,
Okay, no.
Patrick,
That's Laura sitting in.
or Laura. Yeah.
I vote yes.
Okay. Colin,
Mahoney votes no.
Pat,
No.
Trisha,
Keep going.
okay, I got all the votes in except for Trisha. So being that no means a yes to a waiver, the motion passes.
With a yes to a waiver, correct?
Correct, yeah.
All right, so this resolution will be changed for full board to reflect the votes in favor of. Everybody understand where we're going?
yep, in favor of the waiver.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Steingard, for your
Give your
patience.
support in time.
Don't make me regret this, Mr.
Hey,
Steingard.
Tammy,
Yes,
point of information or order information, I think. So since the vote was to reject the resolution as written, I
correct,
believe we need to do a new vote to
correct.
have a resolution in the opposite way. But then there
Correct.
can also be additions added to the resolution, which I'd like to make that, like what I said earlier, is that each is on a case-by-case basis, and this should not set a precedent going forward.
Correct. Agreed on all accounts, and that was the plan to do the second one. I would also, if Mr. Steingard would, as he has already agreed, I think we should put it in writing that he has already agreed as well on this new one, that he would not be seeking roadbed seating or sidewalk seating, as noted in association with his liquor license, his beer and wine license for this cafe. Mr. Steingard, you had already said yes to that, so if that works, then that will all go into this new resolution that we are voting on.
That's
Which
good.
we do not need to do roll call since we have the regular vote with record. You good
Thank
with
you.
that?
Yes, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to assume that everyone's votes are exactly the same as the last vote that we just took. If there is anything that is different, speak now or forever hold your peace on this.
That's including the additions.
Including all of the additions as Mark and I have laid them out, yes. Perfect. Love it. Moving on. Thank you very, very much, Mr. Steingard. Thank you very much.
You have a good night.
Thank you, you too. So the last one that we have on this is 399 Greenwich, application for renewal of their liquor license, and I believe that they are here, correct?
Correct. We have Joseph, sorry, I'm mispronouncing your name, Joseph DeGalbo here with
Yes,
us.
Yes.
Welcome,
I mean,
Joseph.
I should probably start explaining this, and then we'll let Joe come in.
That's fine. Take
Okay.
it away. And
So,
then
so I live in the neighborhood there. Joe is a great guy. It's not an adversarial situation. But there's been, you know, some quality of life issues going on there with particularly with noise and rowdy patrons and things like that, recently. you know, when you're on the community board, your neighbors find out, they always call you, think you have a magic wand to fix everything. So I get a lot of calls about it. I've heard it myself. Things like the new, you know, street seats that are out there, very loud. Sometimes they go past midnight. He has bay windows that were left open. Sometimes there's live band past whatever. I think the stipulation is 10 and then 11 on the weekends. You can correct me on the time, but I believe that's what it is. They were left open, things like that. So I did talk to him a couple of times. The thing that kind of set me off to bring it to the meeting was that Joe had mentioned to me, he says, well, I need to stay in business, and but the other businesses are abiding by the times, and you know, and he kind of wasn't at that point. So I thought that, you know, I completely appreciate that what the city did was horrible to what they did to the small businesses, and they need to make their money back. And but at the same time, we need to have a balance here. And so that's why we're here to reiterate that the stipulations need to be adhered to, the hours need to be adhered to. I think there's something in the resolution that says to change the times at the end. That shouldn't be there. No one's suggesting that he has to change his hours. Just a reiteration of the existing stipulations and the closing times of the street. What do they call it again? The new street
Road beds.
Right, yeah, right. That whatever happened, times that it's midnight now, it might change, but things like that. So I understand sometimes there's a football game, it goes past midnight, but you know, we shouldn't have to suffer on a Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday night of yelling, screaming fans after you know, going close, approaching 1 o'clock, because you know the game is on overtime. So things, you know, things like that. It needs to be tweaked and fixed and addressed a little better. And like I said, Joe's a good guy. There's no issues with that kind of thing, but we just need to, you know, get a little better on it. That, you know, that's basically it.
Okay, thank you. Take it away, Joe.
Yes, I totally agree with Mark. I've been in the neighborhood 15 years. I've had outdoor seating for about 8 years. We do have our street enclosures. We are getting busier. You know, the neighborhood has changed a little bit more. There's more younger people moving in the neighborhood, and a lot of other places have gone out of business, so they're migrating to other restaurants and bars in the neighborhood. So I am getting more patrons than I usually would. I do not do live music, and I've really never had a problem with anything with noise. About a couple months ago, there was about a 2 or 3 week period of time when the NBA playoffs were on, and some of the games that go a little bit later, people were cheering a little bit more because the Knicks were in it. You know, that doesn't really matter, but that's why it was a little bit louder than usual. So it was a very small period of time when that happened. Mark and I had spoke. You know, he had brought his concerns to me, you know, and at the time it was like I was trying to fix the situation. I didn't want that to be going on either, and I have fixed it since then. If you can ask Mark also, you know, I think when I was having these issues and people were complaining, it was maybe like a couple of months ago, and in a 15-year period, that's the only complaints I ever really got while I was here. It has been fixed since then. You know, we close early on Sundays, so we don't stay open for the night game. We're closed by 10 o'clock. Monday, we're closed, so we do not do Monday Night Football. And, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, our kitchen closes at 11. The outside closes at 11. Friday, Saturday, you know, even inside is closed by 1 o'clock. You know, we don't really stay open too late. So, you know, I do police my own business. I make sure that things are the way they're supposed to be. Sometimes things do get a little louder than usual, but I try to take care of that as soon as possible. I don't just let people do whatever they want and, you know, disturb the neighborhood.
For Mark and Joe, there's a comment on this resolution that says that the outdoor area will close at 10 p.m. Is that a typo?
Yes, well, it's supposed to be midnight, but I do close it at 11 o'clock.
That might be the sidewalk cafe as opposed to the street seats thing.
Well, it says bar service for the outdoor portion of the tavern will be 10 p.m. closing all days of the week.
Was that the original stipulation? Just remind me.
Jen? Because everything else for the indoor portion we have is 1 a.m. And Sunday through Wednesday, 2 a.m. Closing Thursday through Saturday, and hours of food service and bar for the outdoors, 10 p.m. But that also goes with the stipulations that have been with the sidewalk roadbed stuff. It's all been 10 p.m.
Does the resolution match the stipulation sheet?
I'm sorry, Tammy, where exactly do you see the 10 p.m. for this?
On page 2 of the applicant's resolution.
For 399 Bench Street, correct? I don't see.
133 Greenwich. Page 2, second word.
We're 399 Greenwich.
Sorry, wrong one. I apologize. My bad. Okay, then I think we're good. They're just out of order. I apologize. All right, so if we are good and everything is
So Tammy, the resolution, the last whereas, where it says agree to new set of operating hours, that can come out. We didn't talk about that.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
With that in mind, then let's call the question.
It's just basically agreed to. Actually, what it should say should agree to what was originally stipulated, and adhere to the city's guidelines for the outdoor street seating. It should say that, and that's what's we agreed to. It's already agreed to, so previously, just reiterated.
Seconded.
That. Thank you for making the clarification. Can we call the question?
Second.
Perfect. We're going to go all in favor as a regular. If you have any objections, please say no. Any abstentions? Any recusals? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Let's go on.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Joe. Have a great night.
You too. Thank you.
All right. So, Lucian, you have capital and budget expense items. We can do that right now, but I would like to get to 5 World Trade Center because it's 7:17.
Tammy, could I just make that comment that I put aside?
Yes.
Which was, this is not the first time that I see the executive had to take on a lot of liquor license applications from that committee.
Hold that. We're going to talk about that with committee reports, virtual meetings, and attendance.
I would just urge you and the staff, whatever you can do to try to get those people to attend. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
We're going to be taking a look at how many public members there are on there and cutting back, so believe me, I know. All right. Okay, moving on. Lucian.
Tammy, are all the votes taken? Did they took votes and you bundled up all the earlier applications?
We are all done with all.
Those are all voted through? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I can definitely do the budget stuff after World Trade Center 5 if
I want to get to World
pleases
Trade
the
Center.
committee.
And for people on the committee to understand the reason why we have to talk about virtual versus hybrid is we have to have a discussion about what the other boards are doing and what our plan is for October, November going forward, so we can post that on the site. It's not a vote, it's a discussion among committee leads for what's going to work with your thing. So stay tuned for that, please. World Trade Center 5, Empire State Development Corporation has a nice large team. I welcome you to the meeting. And who do we have who's going to kick off the presentation tonight? Dan and Lucian, have you been able to move them over?
Yeah, Jen and I are going to switch host, and I'll start moving everyone over.
Yep. And I think we have one of our board members stuck over in the.
Yeah, I'll make sure I get Jill too. To bear with me because Vexy's here we are.
No problem. And next time when we have presenters, let's just move them all over. They can manage to keep themselves quiet for another presentation.
Toby, so I moved you over so you can let me know who I'm missing as I move people.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Lucian, thank you. I see my colleague Dara McQuillan. I see Mike Lavery.
We need our architect, Rob Whitlock.
Yeah, we need my colleague Charlie Howe as
Charlie.
well.
Oh, okay.
Dewana Williams.
I'm sorry, what's the architect's name?
I think we're good. I believe the architect and design team are with Charlie, so we'd be able to use. We just need to. Let me make sure. Yeah, I think we're good. If
I think we got to
send you a note if that changes. The only thing I'd need now is just the ability to share screen. And after I've presented, then Charlie Howe would need the ability to share screen.
You got it, Toby.
That'd be
Send it over to you now.
So
Luke, can you move Justin over?
And Justin Burnback, apologies. Thank you.
Anybody who has not moved over, feel free to chat to the host. We'll get them moved over expediently.
Please.
Toby, all presenters can unmute themselves. You don't need to wait for any of us to unmute you on this. We will ask the committee to hold their questions until the Q&A portion at the end. And for everyone on the call, we're going to do the same thing we've done before. It is you go around once, you get one 2-minute question back to. If you have more questions, you have to wait until the end till we get through everybody, because we do have quite a lot of members of the public here with us.
And sorry, Jill, I'm trying to move you over, but it's not letting me. So I can unmute you when it's time, or you might have to sign back out and in, but I'm not getting the option to move you over. I'm sorry.
Take it away, Toby. Thank you very much. And welcome to the team.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to come before you tonight to provide updates on the World Trade Center Site 5 project. My name is Toby Jaisimi, and I am here on behalf of ESD, and joined by my colleagues, co-public sponsors for the project, representatives from the Port Authority, and also members of the development team who you'll get to meet a little bit later. Wanted to just give a quick run through of the structure of the presentation. We wanted to ensure that we are succinct as possible in the updates that we provide to allow you time to share and for us to hear your questions and your comments. And so I'll quickly provide some background. We've been before the community board now for a few times, but recognizing that we're not speaking to the same audience each time, we're going to provide a quick update and background on the project, provide some responses to questions that we've received from the community board, and then we will also give a quick design presentation on the World Trade Center Site 5 project, and then allow for there to be Q&A. Hope you're all able to view my screen well.
Toby, your screen is itty bitty. It's very small.
It's minimized. You have to maximize it.
Itty bitty. All right, let's do that. Excuse me while I figure this out. How's that?
Well, now I can see the whole screen's worth of weight. That's much better.
Okay, great. Thank you. I was trying to share my screen and have my notes up at the same time. Awesome. So giving some background on the project, apologies, scroll to the right side. There we go. Okay, so LMDC, which is the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation, had used HUD grants and HUD funds to acquire, remediate, and clear Site 5, which is the former Deutsche Bank building that was destroyed during the 9/11 attacks. In 2014, the World Trade Center General Project Plan approved commercial and/or hotel use for Site 5, and that GPP, the General Project Plan, provided for an approximately 900-foot tower on Site 5. We'd received a question just quickly in the timeline about an RFQ that was issued by the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation with regards to looking at housing south of Chambers Street. My understanding, just from the quick research that I did, was that that RFQ was issued sometime back in 2002. We're looking into that, and we'll hope to provide more details as we dig up that information, but just wanted to note that we've gotten that question. Moving ahead in the timeline, February 2006, there was an agreement between LMDC, which is the Lower Manhattan Development Corporation, and the Port Authority, under which the port exchanged property that it owned for the development of the 9/11 Memorial and Museum and the Performing Arts site, and that in turn allowed for the port to have an interest in LMDC's owned Site 5. The land swap was designed such that rather than receiving rental revenue from the Performing Arts Center, the museum, and the memorial, the port would have rights to the development of Site 5. We've gotten some questions as we've gone over this aspect of the project as it relates to air rights and development rights. Please note that the 9/11 Memorial and Museum site, because it's not subject to New York City zoning, the concept of transferable development rights or air rights isn't applicable here. It's subject to the general project plan, which states the uses and density restrictions herein. Continuing on after that MOU with regards to the swap of the site in February 2019, LMDC and the Port Authority agreed to jointly issue an RFP for Site 5 that would allow for either the commercial development as of right or for a mixed-use development, which would require modifications to the general project plan. In June 2019, that RFP was released. The RFP was scored by a committee with representation from the City of New York, the Port Authority, and ESD. The pandemic did not have any effect on the scoring of the RFP. Each proposal was reviewed and scored according to, financial offering, feasibility, project program design, community benefits, respondent experience execution, and also diversity practices. There was a question as to whether or not the details with regards to the scoring and the process by which the committee did their scoring was subject to open meetings law. That committee is not a public body. The selection panel scored the proposal according to the criteria that was included in the RFP. The selection panel then, of course, made a recommendation to the relevant boards, the ESD, the LMDC, and Port Authority boards. And it's at which that point in February of this year, 2021, there was conditional designation of the development team. I just wanted to share with you quickly, again, just the background of the development team here. It's a partnership with Silverstein Properties, Brookfield Properties, Omni New York, and the Bar Development. I'll note that Omni and the Bar are both expert developers in the realm of affordable housing and have a lot of experience and background related to providing affordable housing across the city, the state, and across the country. There's also been questions that we've received with regards to some of the details of other RFPs, with this development team having been the highest scoring proposal. I'll note that the project remains an open procurement until final approval, and negotiations are ongoing. So there's certain aspects of the deal that won't be public and will remain confidential until said approvals are received. Moving quickly, again, this is just to afford us a quick background, just to bring folks up to speed. What the project would be, we'd have a mixed-use income residential tower, again, with there being an affordability mix. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Office, community facility, an amenity space, and also retail. It's important to note that the land for this site is not free. There'd be a 99-year ground lease with payments from the developer to ESD and from ESD to the Port Authority. I believe we'd gotten an inquiry and a question with regards to the structure of the deal and the role that each agency plays. The structure by which ESD collects rent payments and submits those funds to the port is not unique to Site 5. It's happened across other projects in which ESD and Port Authority are co-sponsors. For example, the Queens West Development Project out in Long Island City. I wanted to take some time just to go into a little detail. We shared the same slide at our last presentation, but just to touch on the public benefits, specifically for the affordable housing and community facility. Right now, the way that the project is being proposed. It'd be 25% of all the residential units would be permanently affordable, which would mean hundreds of affordable housing units with an average of 50% of AMI. An example of that would be approximately $42,000 annual income for an individual or $60,000 annual income for a family of 4. There'd be a regulatory agreement that would be in place with a New York State Housing, Homes and Community Renewal to set the defined terms of what the affordability requirements would be for the project. But we wanted to note the concerns that we've gotten from the public. We've also had engagement with elected officials who have expressed interest in seeing an increase in the affordability rates for the project. We've met with the elected officials. They've given us some homework and tasks in which we have to go back and look at what the public subsidy and the additional funds that would be required to increase the affordability rate at the project. So we're doing that homework. We hear you, we're working through it. And then once we have more detailed update, we'll be sure to provide that, but we're taking our direction, both from what we've heard from the public and also from the elected officials as it relates to the affordability aspect of the project. At this time, I would also just like to quickly mention, of course, for those who may not be familiar, that the development team is looking at a potential operator for the community facility in response to the feedback that we've gotten so far. We'd like to see it be a multi-use facility offering a range of intergenerational services. But to touch more a little bit on affordability and to answer some of the other general questions that we've gotten on the project, I'd invite my colleague, Dwayne Williams, who's also with DeVar Development, co-developers for the project, to just share some general updates. Dwayne?
Thank you, Toby. Good evening, Community Board 1, and thank you again for having us. I know the hour is late, so we will keep it brief so that we can get to the questions and the rest of the presentation. But we have listened to your comments and received your feedback and taken it very seriously, and just wanted to provide a few responses to requests as well as clarifications and some of the questions that have come up multiple times. I know we've touched on them, but I wanted to provide just some clarification on a few things. One is with respect to community preferences. Our goal is to reserve 50% of the affordable housing units for residents in Community District 1. That is our goal. We have discussed with you, and we've received more questions about it, that there is an ongoing lawsuit against the City of New York regarding community preference. I'll provide the name. There are actually 2 lawsuits. I'll provide the names. I can even put them in chat if desired. But the lawsuits are Winfield versus the City of New York and Renewal versus the City of New York. The last major movement on the case was in 2019, just before the pandemic. So things have slowed down since the pandemic. We are all hopeful that the city will prevail in the lawsuits and that community preferences will, in some form, will prevail. And in that case, we will reserve, our goal is to reserve 50% of the affordable housing units for residents in Community District 1. So wanted to reiterate that, but also make you aware of the ongoing lawsuit that is happening. Secondly, and somewhat related to community preference, is the special interest groups. There have been multiple questions regarding a set aside for first responders, survivors, children, and essential workers. I think that this is actually, I know there are a lot of feelings about what's happening on the site, but this is one area in which we are aligned. Our desire and goal is to consider a set aside. We are, though, challenged with the federal Fair Housing Act, as well as the impact of the lawsuit or the outcome of the lawsuit. So depending on how it turns out and how we can find a nuanced approach to the federal Fair Housing Act, that will impact whether or not we're able to provide a set aside. But we are, along with our colleagues at the state, reviewing this. So it is under review. We wanted to share that we are aligned in a desire for a set aside, but the review is ongoing. The third thing that we think was worth highlighting is the issue of a permanent affordability. We've received multiple questions about it. Wanted to clarify that there are no expiration dates of the affordability requirement. And we've been asked about mechanisms or how is this going to be documented. Toby just mentioned the regulatory agreement. There are usually 3 ways. The regulatory agreement is one way. There will also be a restrictive covenant on the title. And thirdly, registration with the state of New York, which will be a public record, and you can check that annually to see that the affordable housing units are permanently affordable. Lastly, as Toby mentioned, we have met with the electeds. This was a significant goal that we've heard from the community, and we took it seriously. We met with Assemblymember Yuling New, State Senator Brian Kavanaugh, Congressman Nadler's representatives, and Borough President Gail Brewer's representatives. And we had a significant discussion about the question over increased affordability. As was just mentioned by Toby, my firm DeBar and Omni are, we're major affordable housing developers and have been doing this for about 20 years. We are familiar with all of the programs that work for affordable housing. So we are exploring options. We are reviewing all the programs. We don't have answers yet. We are working on an analysis. In light of limited state resources, we are investigating what's available and wanted to report back that this is undergoing. We don't have a report yet for you, but we are working on it. And this would be in addition to the 300 plus affordable units that are already being provided with no subsidy. So Toby, back to you.
Thank you for that, Dawana. So again, trying to be as efficient as we can with our time. I'm going to just quickly pull up a slide. This is meant to be meant to be the last slide, but I just wanted to provide folks with my contact information and my email addresses. Project lead for ESD. It's my full name, which is oluwatobi.jaisimi@esd.ny.gov. Again, we welcome continued discussion and engagement on the project. This will not be the last opportunity for us to engage with us. We came before you in August rather. We're here in September, and we'll continue to coordinate with the community board to provide updates on the project as we have them available. Related to affordable housing, as Dawana alluded to, more aspects of the design, which you'll see in a few minutes, and other key parts of the project. So with that being said, I'm going to temporarily stop sharing my screen and invite my colleague Dara McQuillan to speak, and then we'd segue into the design presentation.
Thanks, Toby. Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dara McQuillan. I work at Silverstein Properties. My office is at 7 World Trade Center, and I live on Liberty Street. So my whole life is within a 6-block radius of 5 World Trade Center. Aside from affordability, which is obviously an important topic and something that I believe we're going to be discussing today, and building design, which we'll be talking about in a minute, the community has brought up a whole range of topics and issues to our attention. And I just wanted to update you on 3 of those that were raised the last time we met and in a number of recent meetings. First of all is the sustainability goals and objectives of this project. Our organization, as I think many of you know, is very committed to sustainability, energy efficiency, and resiliency. And this building will be designed to the LEED Gold standard, which is consistent with all of the other towers at the World Trade Center. And we will come back to you with more updates once we get further along in the design process. Another issue that has been raised and is ongoing is vehicular access to the building. And we've all looked into the possibility of taking a left turn on West Street at Albany Street. So we commissioned a traffic study of the broader neighborhood from Philip Habib to address the possibility of this left turn, and also to identify any obstacles we collectively would encounter as we meet with the city and state DOT. And it's a study that I'd like to share with the community board, hopefully very soon, within the next week or 2, so that we can look at it together. And as we sit down with city and state DOT, hopefully, work with them to make that happen. There's a lot of technical data that goes into this sort of stuff that's way too difficult for me to understand. So I'm trying to digest it along with the rest of the team. And then, Toby and her team at Empire State Development is going to set up meetings with the city and state DOT. So we look forward to that, and hopefully we will be successful, because I think it's something we all want. And the third update I'd like to give you is, with respect to the community center within the building, at the community board's suggestion, we met with Educational Alliance, which are the operators of the Manny Cantor Center. And we are in discussions with them to be consultants on the programming of the space, which means that they will hold discussions with you with community leaders, local businesses, and key community stakeholders to figure out what is the best use of the space from a programming perspective. And then we would like them to be the operators of that facility. So, we have a sort of a letter of intent or a handshake agreement with them at the moment, and we're negotiating, a more solid agreement. But we're very happy with everything we've seen so far. We think they're terrific, and we think they'll be great partners, not just for us in the building, but for everyone in the neighborhood. So those are my 3 updates, and now I'd like to hand it over to Rob Whitlock, who's going to give us a design update and focus on the context of the building within our neighborhood.
Lucian, just a point of logistics, if you would please allow Rob Whitlock, who's presenting under the name of Charlie Howe, to have the ability to share his screen.
You got it.
While he's doing that, just a reminder, Toby, that we would be posting all of this live. So anybody who didn't get a chance to see the details on some of the slides that you had up will be able to view that off of either our live stream page or from the CB.
Thank you.
Mr. Howe, is everything going all right with the screen share?
I think it's Mr. Whitlock framed as Mr. Howe.
That's correct. We're not attempting to misrepresent identities. It's just a matter of logistics and ensuring that we have the technology available. That is Mr. Howe that's now coming into the frame. He's assisting Mr. Whitlock in the presentation.
I heard the name and then I couldn't remember it, so I just went with Howe. Is everything all right with the screen share, Mr. Whitlock?
And as a reminder for everybody, we are asking you to have your questions written, hold on to them, and we will go through all the Q&A with the panel after this presentation on design. Although Toby, if he's having troubles, if they can't figure out we can let them tinker with it and take some Q&A. It's up to you.
Charlie, another thing we can do just quickly, if you'd like to email me the presentation, and since I've had an easier time with it, I can try to slide through. We can have that as a backup option as well. I want to be respectful again of the community board members' time. So just let me know what works best.
Charlie, you need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm not able to hear you, Charlie.
It doesn't look like he's connected his audio.
Yeah, if you can afford us just a quick 30 seconds, I guess we can take some preliminary questions on what myself, actually, I do have to apologize. This is actually a great moment of transition. I'd overlooked a presentation from my colleagues from the Port Authority. So at this time, I'd like to invite Mike Lavery and Justin Bernbach, if they're on, to provide some responses and general comments on behalf of the Port Authority. My apologies. Justin, Mike.
Thanks, Toby. Thanks for having us tonight. I'm Justin Bernbach, Director of Government Relations for the Port Authority. What I'm going to cover, Mike can cover some of the other questions in a second, but one of the questions that came up in the past and that was compiled by Diana and sent to us had to do with this phrase that has come up a couple times, made whole. What that actually means for the Port Authority to be made whole in this deal. I just want to take a second to explain kind of what we mean by that. It's probably our fault at the Port Authority that we didn't kind of clear this up earlier. But first of all, I mean, it's not so much that we're being made whole in the deal, but that was we were made whole in a way in the land swap. Holly Light and Toby have spoken a lot about the land swap. what happened for those who, it was actually in Toby's presentation, so I won't belabor it. But by us giving up the land for the PAC and the Memorial Museum, we had foregone a large amount of office space that had been in the original plan for us to develop, and that was in turn meant to replace what was lost in the Twin Towers. So what we got in return for giving up that land was the right to develop office space that would make us whole, and that's what it means in this context, by replacing the foregone office space, which was, as I said, meant to replace the lost office space from 9/11. So there was no way, and what I should say about that swap is I wasn't here at the time, but it wasn't based on any precise numbers, precise valuations of the property. It was a neutral exchange of properties that was seen to be in the public interest, and that was allowed those two elements to be placed on the site while we developed the parcel at Site 5. So we couldn't know then what the valuation of that would be. There was no way to, and in terms of whether we're made whole in this transaction, that's kind of the subject of the ongoing lease negotiations, which are not completed yet. So I know the next question would naturally be, okay, well, what are you earning? And I'll not answer that question, but I'll deal with it by saying a couple things. One, the lease negotiations are ongoing, and we'll have a better sense of that soon. Two, when the meeting that was referenced by both Toby and Delana with the elected officials, in the context of that meeting, we were asked, what is the port? Exactly that question. What is the port's lease payment? How much will they earn from this? So we're going to answer that question to some degree, or we plan to answer that question in the same context. We're going to get back to the electeds. We're going to sit down and have just a thorough conversation about all the opportunities in terms of affordable housing and what what our financial stake is and how that looks in that context. So on that piece, I'd ask for your patience at this point, but I would say also, I don't want to take up too much time, but keep in mind, I think two things, which is that whatever we do earn from this over the life of the project is going to be a small fraction. And I'm not talking about like 7/8 or 9/10. I mean, a small fraction of what we've invested in the site over 20 years. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. But more importantly, I think more to the point is that this money that we do earn is required for us. It's needed for our capital plan. It is not, we don't earn a profit. We're obviously a public agency. Every dollar we earn goes back into our capital plan or into our operations. We only earn money in really two ways, which is user fees, which is like path fares and bridge and tunnel tolls, and rents on the properties that we control. So that's the context. Hope that answers the question, at least moves the ball forward. If there's any follow-up questions, I can take them now or afterwards if the architectural presentation is ready.
In the interest of time, why don't we allow for Rob and Charlie to lead us through the design presentation as expeditiously as possible. And then again, we're here to listen. We're here to hear you and receive your comments and your questions. And so I'll now allow for Rob, Whitlock, and Charlie to give out quick design presentation, and then we'll go to the question and comment section.
Toby, and I want to make sure that you understand that the community has said it in the last two meetings, and so I'm delighted that the Port Authority is here, because more than listen, the community has questions that they want answered. There have been some answers tonight, but we do want to have answers more than just, yes, we did.
Thank you for that.
And continue.
Wow.
Charlie, you're on.
We see your presentation, but don't hear you.
Charlie, unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Can you hear us now?
Indeed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to present an overview of the project and focusing on the overall appearance, and then we've heard from you the importance of the way the building relates to content, the way that the building is available to the community, the way that how it's connected to the park, and show you some views.
Charlie, can you stay directly in front of your computer where the microphone is? I don't know if you're moving at all, but you're sort of waffling in and out for sound. I apologize.
Can you hear me now? Is that good?
It's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Much better.
We had multiple microphones working, so, okay, apologies. So. All right, we'll get to finish doing this.
There you go. I can hear you now, Charlie. Go for it. Oh, okay, sorry. The tower, as Toby mentioned earlier, sits on the former Deutsche Bank site. So it fills the last remaining spot of the World Trade Center master plan. More importantly to us, we see it as a building that's a bridge and a gateway to the surrounding community, particularly Greenwich South. Toby spoke about the makeup of the building. I think one of the things that's important to note is that this mixed-use tower with residential above 5 floors, 6 floors of office below, gives us an opportunity to express the building in 2 ways. The tower addresses the sort of city context, and we see the podium, design of the podium, as a way to introduce an element that's more of a scale of the historic buildings, brings the scale of the building down. So unlike the all office buildings of the previous World Trade Center development, we have the opportunity to develop the building at a different scale. The building does sit between the World Trade Center area. It connects a lot of neighborhoods, Battery Park City, the rest of Community Board 1 to the east, but its immediate adjacency is to the Greenwich South neighborhood. And we've looked at that neighborhood to take some architectural clues to give us an idea of how to make the building feel more like it is part of that neighborhood. As I think you know, the building is made up of a variety of buildings, a variety of scales and periods of time. 120 Greenwich, which is the site just immediately south of ours, is a building that seems to be an appropriate starting point to think about the scale of the building and its architectural design, though we're drawing on a lot of references from the neighborhood. That building, as many buildings of that era were designed, the facade is made up of 3 pieces: a base that relates to the street, an attic story at the top that typically is more ornamental, and in the middle of the building essentially connects those 2 together. We've also identified within the community that facades that face onto Greenwich Street, where you have the whole width of the narrow north-south block, the building occupies the entire street width. On some of the side streets, because of their length, you frequently have buildings of different styles, different periods that are juxtaposed to one another. So there's a finer grain or just a different scale that results because of that. There's a particular design of the facade, the north facade or the north side of the buildings on Albany Street with this rounded corner. Both the newer W Hotel has that, and then 120 Greenwich does as well. We've looked at materiality in the neighborhood, and while there are many different types of brick applied, the 2 buildings immediately adjacent to us, this is the block just south of ours, are clad in a beige brick, and those buildings are also typically framed with a limestone in some way. Buildings in this neighborhood and era are typically the windows are framed in bronze or ironwork painted in a sort of brownish color. And so there's a nice play between the warm tone of the wall and the warm tone of the frame. So drawing from these references in the vicinity, we've tried to think about how we might apply these to the building. I might add that we're in the very early schematic phases of the design. We've advanced the design of the podium
ahead of the way we typically would in the process, just to give you a sense of the character that we see unfolding in the building. So this is a rendering or an elevational comparison of our projects. We do think of it as 130 Greenwich Street, not 5 World Trade. But our podium, which has 6 office floors, you'll see that the retail storefront at the ground level is two stories in height. The upper 2 floors, the glazing and outdoor spaces are recessed slightly, and then the office floors span in between. This is our building superimposed into that photograph we saw a moment ago. And here you'll see that the podium with this much smaller residential tower floor plate above allows us to continue the cornice line of the street and really feel like part of the neighborhood. This is a rendering looking from the northeast down Greenwich Street, and you'll see the elevation of the podium. We'll talk about the materials in a moment. You'll see that we've taken that rounded corner from the buildings to the south, and we've applied it not only to the podium, but to the tower above. To me, it was important that this building almost allowed the space from the Memorial Park to flow down Greenwich Street. So that rounded corner, I think, makes the building feel less bulky and more like a good neighbor. When we look at that elevation in detail, surrounding the glazing, we're looking at a frame that's painted in a bronze color. The large 2-story frame that you see is a material that's in a limestone color that gives the building some sort of structural appearance and strength, visibility. And then we infill with the brick panel that is sort of derived from the color of the adjacent building. So we have shadow and depth and materials that refer to the neighborhood. When we look at the podium itself, this is the view looking from the southeast. So we're looking at the Albany Street facade. And here, rather than have the podium wrap the entire site as one monolithic element, we've chosen to let a piece of the tower come down so that we have these 2 facade types in juxtaposition to one another. The soffit of the tower element you see at the far end of the rendering comes down to a single story. This sort of works. The sidewalk on the site slopes 5 feet from Greenwich to Washington Street, as you probably are all aware. So in a broader compositional sense, we're trying to break the massing down on the south facade. And then the next slide, I'll talk about the design. Well, in a moment, I'll talk about the design of the storefront. So here we're looking on Albany Street from West Street, and you'll see how the building nestles into this language of base heights that are juxtaposed to one another. The ground floor of the building, you'll see in a moment, is given over to a large amount of retail. That's what you see on the ground. This building, as I mentioned a moment ago, has got office and residential. We've moved the office lobby to the 2nd floor. I'll talk about the planning of those floor plans in a moment, but we're giving a large amount of ground floor over to publicly accessible uses. So you'll see all the retail fronting. That narrow bit in the center is a small entry on the Albany Street side to give access to the residential lobby. And you'll see that we're using a bronze stone metal and then picking up on the stone base that we saw in the, that we've recognized as an element that exists elsewhere in the neighborhood. So looking at the ground floor, this is again, the Albany Street elevation showing the amount of retail. The community entry to one of the 2 entries to the community space exists on the western end of the Albany Street elevation. You see the changing height of the elevation. This is a preliminary rendering of the entry to the community space at that corner. The Albany-Washington intersection has 3 other commercial uses here. So we've made the entry as accessible as possible. As we move on to Greenwich Street, you'll see that on the right side of on the right-hand side of this image, we have a driveway that crosses the site. I'll talk about that in a minute when we look at the overall plan. There's a public entrance to the building at center, and the left-hand side, which is the Greenwich-Albany corner, is entirely given over to retail use. The Washington Street elevation has community to the right. You'll see the plan of loading dock, and in a moment we understand your concerns about making sure that loading and trash and all of that, those activities necessary for the building to function have as little impact as possible on the public realm sidewalk. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We think that the garage doors, which cater for 4 trucks, provide an opportunity for community artwork. That's something that exists, as you know, currently exists in the World Trade Center neighborhood and is really quite a welcome element in the otherwise, very glass and stone environment. So we think that could be really great. This plan shows, this is the ground floor, the RFP, presumed an office building, which would cover the entire site, property line to property line. We're proposing to create a driveway on the north side to help remove cars from the street and give, you'll see in a moment that that's sheltered by the building above, so that gives protected entry to the residential lobby, which is that small blue element at the center of the plan. There's a large amount of retail, which you see in orange. We know the desire for small community retailers. There hasn't really been a strategy for figuring out how they get subdivided. That will be part of the ongoing development. Community center on lower left. And then on the right-hand side in yellow, where we call out public entry, we're providing a route within the building to circulate through to the community center and back out to Liberty Park on the second level. You'll see that that residential buildings are comprised these days with a lot of mailboxes and package rooms. You'll notice those are absent on this plan. They've been moved to the second floor. We removed an office floor on level 2 that was envisioned as part of the RFP response. That's now given over to the office lobby, and then all of those mailboxes and package rooms for the residents. So that allows us to use a large part of the ground floor for public use. The loading dock, and I think the plan is to, in a subsequent meeting, present in much more detail how the loading dock operates, how traffic comes to and from the site. But I will note at the moment that the zoning requires 1 loading dock for a building like this. We're providing 4. All of the trash is being removed by a private hauler. All of the trash is stored inside the building until it's hauled away. All of we're providing space within the building for bicycle messengers and delivery people so that the sidewalk is unencumbered as possible. This is a plan that tells you what I just said. The loading dock, for the sake of time, we'll go past it. The driveway is essentially a single lane through. The part on the left-hand side of the page ramps up to 5 feet from Washington Street to the lobby level, and then there's a place for 4 or 5 cars to unload. We spent a lot of time working with ESD and our engineers to understand how traffic will exit onto Greenwich Street. You'll notice that the little kink in the driveway there is to allow a planted buffer to exist between the pedestrian realm of either the steps or the ramp coming down from Liberty Park, and as it confronts the driveway. And then we also see that the walkway that comes through along the face of the building there is essentially an expansion of the east-west sidewalk widths on the site. So we see that also helping to alleviate congestion on the sidewalks. This is a rendering of the driveway entrance looking from Washington Street. So the elevated park is on the left in the security center for trucks entering the trade center. You'll see that our podium cantilever is about 30 feet over the driveway below. The bridge that you see in the foreground provides pedestrian connectivity from Liberty Park directly into the community space. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. And you see the level of detail and then greenery that we're proposing to add to that southern wall of the Liberty Park, which at the moment is unarticulated. This is the view of the driveway from Greenwich Street. So you'll see we're removing the building structure from the face of the podium above and pulling it inside to provide much greater visual ferocity between Liberty Park and this through passage, which we see as essentially a public space. And so I think we're pleased with the way the building and the park are coming together. You imagine if this was an office building just coming down at that property line, it'd be a very different proposition. So the public space within the building, this is the second floor plan. As you enter from the public entry on Greenwich Street at ground, that gives you access to either an ADA lift or an escalator that brings you up into this public passage you see in yellow on the plan. That runs along the north facade, connects to a second means of access to the community space, which is on level 3. That's the elevator that you see in orange on the upper left, and that's immediately adjacent to the bridge from Liberty Park. And I'll talk about the connectivity of that in a moment. The community space we're providing is roughly 11,000 square feet. That's on the 3rd floor. I know there's been desire in the community for a sports hall. We are contending with the fact that this is a building that is based on a core that's in the middle of the plan. So, but I do think that the space we're providing is quite nice because there's good daylight penetration on all sides. And then with those 2 points of access that you see, the other side of this floor is given over to office space. The Liberty Park connection, this slide is really about how pedestrians get to the building, but also to the bridge. And as you know, I think the quickest connection potentially from Battery Park is through the bridge over West Street that comes into the park. And our pedestrian bridge is right in what is now a planted zone, including the Anne Frank tree just south of the entry to the Greek church. So what we're proposing, the guidelines are not very prescriptive. What we're proposing to do is, rather than just have a bridge connecting to the current sidewalk line, is to create a sort of sense of arrival, a welcoming place for people to enter. We're proposing to take the materials used in the paving of Liberty Park and extend those in. So that seating area that you see is one that is part of our proposal. This elevated planting zone, we're trying to make it a welcoming place for people to meet and greet one another before they go into the building. And the design, again, the design of the bench is drawn from existing architectural vocabulary of Liberty Park. This is a rendering at eye level from that welcoming space to the bridge going through. And there, I think maybe we remove the slide, there's a single level elevator that connects and the public stair connects from this second level to the community space, which is 1 floor above. And then just some preliminary views of the tower from different vantage points within the city. So this is Vesey Street, just in the middle of Brookfield Place, looking back to the northwest corner of the tower. We've intentionally designed the building as a series of elements that spiral in space rather than a simple extrusion. I think that's important to make the building feel like it fits into the neighborhood, even at this height. And that it also gives you slightly different perception of the building as you see it from different vantage points. This is the view from directly due west on Albany Street and South End Avenue. And the last slide is the view looking west from Liberty Street, adjacent to Zuccotti Park, and the east end of the building. So again, this is sort of, we're early in the design phases. I just wanted to give you an understanding of how we're thinking about the design has been developing. It's been highly influenced by your comments and concerns about public accessibility. And we look forward to presenting to you further as the design continues to develop.
Rob, thank you for that presentation, and thank the community board members for their patience. We went through the different aspects of the project updates. I'll now turn it over to Tammy to help facilitate the Q&A discussion and folks having an opportunity to speak on what we've just presented.
a large group here, so we're gonna start, we're gonna put a timer up. Everybody gets 2 minutes, and for everybody on the board, we're going through once. Literally, if you have a second follow-up, we can come back to you as time allows. We'll start with Justine. I'm looking for hands up, so if the board member would like to speak, instead of going around the table, try and do a hands up for me. And we'll start with Justine.
Amy, I'm gonna run the timer for my phone here, and I just want to remind everyone, I'm gonna be as equitable as possible with the time. Once it hits 2 minutes, I'm gonna hit the mute button. So just for everyone to know, I'm not singling anyone out.
Yeah, understand at 8:10, we're not singling people out. We're just trying to do the best we can to allow the most amount of people to speak. And so we're not here to limit. So the order that I see thus far is going to be Justine and then Betty. Lucian?
Okay.
There you go, Justine.
All right, I'll go quick. This one is for Darren McQuillan. You were talking about the LEED standard for the buildings, and I think that's the same LEED standards that are on buildings in Battery Park City that are presently, I think all of them have a D rating in terms of the local law 97 and climate changes they have to do. And first, clarify that I'm right, that's what the reference is the same. And then the second point is why are we building a building that is not going to be up to whatever local law standards there are for sustainability? Thank you.
So thank you for your question. I can't really speak to the other buildings in Battery Park City, but I can say that this building will be designed to all local law standards with respect to sustainability and everything else. What I said was that it would be designed to LEED Gold standard, which is the same standard that we achieved at 7 World Trade Center, the building I work in, which was the first LEED certified office building in New York City. So LEED Gold is one of the highest of the LEED certification standards, and that's what we're aiming towards. I'm sure as we progress with the design process, there'll be other sustainability goals and objectives that we will set and we'll be able to share with you. But this is designed to be energy efficient and sustainable, a good building for the inhabitants, the people who live and work there, and also a good building for the planet. That's our goal.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And I'm familiar with 7 World Trade Center. I think that I was lucky enough to get a tour of it at the very beginning. So I'm aware of it. But those buildings in Battery Park City that I'm speaking of are also LEED Gold. So I guess I'm not challenging you. I'm just saying, please look into it. And thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Justine.
All right, Betty Kay, you're next.
Yes, thanks. Because this again was a follow-up to last time I asked the question, given what I know about the LEED Gold building, including what I live in. And I guess one of my basic ones is your building going to be all electric? Because I think one of the problems many of our buildings are having is they have a gas component to some of their appliances, which are going to be a big challenge for them having to probably switch everything out.
Betty, that's a very good question. It's something we're looking into, but we haven't determined whether or not that's feasible yet. But you raise a very good point.
Okay, and also if you look at the 2050 standards, because while some buildings, mine's a D, and there are some as low as a 7 by the departments of building with a star rating due to local law 97, which is they're looking at huge sums of money to upgrade. But that's even for 2024. In 2030 standards and 2050 standards, they have to make major changes in their buildings. So I want to, eventually that you're looking forward to those future dates as well for the occupants.
Absolutely. I can tell you that we are certainly looking forward to those future dates.
Great, which I know this stuff isn't even out there yet, but thank you.
Thanks, Betty.
Okay, going down the committee. I don't see any other hands up before I go to the public. Somehow give me a wave if you have a question, because I want to make sure that I once.
So, Tammy, this is Wendy again. I apologize. My hands up seem to work.
Get it, you're up.
I just wanted to ask a little bit more about the community space, and I apologize. I wasn't at the original presentation. I know Rosa has come back and reported to us that because it's a center elevator space, you you won't be able to have something like a gym. But is the ceiling higher? Is it, I mean, I'm having a hard time imagining exactly what 11,000 square feet is. Is it the type of thing that you deliver the space raw and then the Manny Cantor Center has to come up with the money to build out the space? Or are you committed to building the design that they want? I'd like to hear more about that community center. If, is it going to be set up so if they had like a kiln or a very high energy kiln or something, that ventilation would be included? Or is this at best like just a room that they can do arts and crafts or like dance?
Hi, Wendy. I think I can say because we're still at an early stage in the design process, our plan is to work with Manny Cantor and the community and figure out what the very best uses of the space are within the envelope of the building. So obviously we are working with a center core building, which limits us to the things we can do on the floor. But it is early enough in the design to figure out if we needed to do something that involved some sort of ventilation, for example, that we would be able to work that in. But we're hoping that the Manny Cantor folks will be working with you and other members of the community to determine what is the best use of this space for the community. And hopefully we will have enough time in the design process to incorporate that once we've all agreed on what the right thing to do is.
And I apologize because I'm not on that committee in terms of how the Manny Cantor Center was selected, because they're not actually in Community Board 1. I've heard only good things about them. But maybe we can talk offline. Somebody else can tell me how I can, what the process will be in terms of, how the community will give them feedback. But I definitely, is the ceiling height standard ceiling height, or is it higher than normal? Do you know on those floors, or is that part of it's still on the drawing board?
I'll ask Rob if he knows what the ceiling height is on that particular floor, or whether that's still open to design. Rob, do you know? You're on mute. Rob, we can't hear you.
I muted you, Rob.
Okay, thank you. At the moment, I believe that it's roughly an 11-foot tall space. So it's designed, the adjacent space is an office floor. I think it's 14 feet floor to floor. And I think as the design progresses, whether the ceiling is finished or raw, I mean, that'll be part of the process. But it's not a low ceiling height space.
Right. Okay. So maybe we can find out more with time. And are you committed to building out their interior space? You have to raise the money to build out the core once you give them 1,000 square feet.
So I'll check with the team, Wendy, but my understanding is that we will build out the space with them. They are our partner in this project. That's not something we're going to try to do somewhere else. I'll double check with you and let you know, but that's my understanding.
Okay, thank you so much.
I think that was my understanding too, Wendy, by the way, from the CAC, is that it wasn't, if you put the burden on the not-for-profit, there's a really good chance that it won't get done. And there's a guarantee to the community. So my understanding is that it is being done by the developer. But you are right in saying that we do need to have that confirmed, Dara.
Right, and as high of a ceiling as you can. It's a real multi-purpose room. Obviously, we would love a gym. It's just for a gym, but the more flexibility on ceiling height, and because there's a lot of things they could do, but obviously, anything that could be expanded on the community front. I'm sure we've exhausted you with how much need we have for space for kids. So thank you.
Sure thing. Thanks, Wendy.
I will go at the end because I'm going to echo something similar to Wendy. Vicki Cameron, then Rosa Chang, then Jill Goodkind.
Thank you, Tammy. Just have a couple of comments on the presentation tonight. No real questions. I understand everything. I just want to point out again, and I understand everything about the affordable definition based on federal regulations. But the affordable that is being proposed here, 40,000 per person, 60 for the family, it's a very unreasonable number anywhere in New York City. I'm very concerned about that. One of the reasons that I'm concerned is when families or individuals do move into a neighborhood like this, they simply can't even afford grocery stores. Where are their kids going? Where they're summering? Some kids summering, exotic places. That kind of a division makes people apprehensive about moving down here. And in turn, I also wanted to say that while you hired one of the best firms in the world and are very fond of, this tower is for me a reflection of a very fancy corporate tower or a residential tower that will warrant extremely high rents. And once again, it's just more of the same. And we have a lot of this in the neighborhood. And we would prefer to have something that is affordable in real terms. What is a single person at, I don't know, 108 afford, and how do they fit into this building? The look of the building, again, while it's wonderful, I would not like to repeat the Hudson Yards that I often refer to as the Canyon of Glass. And when you make those references and pictures and you just follow certain, heights of cornices and details, it's just not enough for us. I think we would like to have a tower that's a little more humane and fits into the, overall picture of what a home looks like. Thank you.
Charlie, any comments?
Sure. Vicki, thank you for your comments. To address the first part of it, I completely understand what you're saying. The goal is to address the most severely rent burdened households. I will note that for singles, the income will qualify for a studio as low as $25,000, which is about $700 a month. I understand that some of those individuals that you mentioned, ranging at 40,000, those are for individuals who are families. Those are for families of 3. So I would like to make that clarification. But at 30% of AMI, we are targeting some of the most rent burdened households.
Well, I understand that, but what I keep saying is you should come down and see what it costs for everything else in this area, right? An orange is $1.49. It's hard to live here. You have to go miles out of the city to buy groceries, hold them back. Just the entire exchange is a bit unrealistic. What we are asking for down here is true affordable, right? Rents where people are paying 30% of their income, whatever that income is, so that they have leftover revenue to spend it on other issues in life and other commodities and other luxuries, saving to buy something. That's what our goal is. And like I said, I understand that you previously told me that you're sticking to affordable guidelines based on federal regulations. That is long gone, and we should reassess that completely.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Vicki, next, Rosa.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I saw you at the CAC. By the way, we should really change that name to not CAC. But I want to say I actually appreciate that you guys are looking at this. And I do feel, at least from my experience, that you are taking our comments and our input seriously, and you are adjusting as you are able. Obviously, we will keep pushing for more adjustment because that's our job. One of those issues I want to touch on, because I know you've heard a lot about affordable housing, so I'll just touch on what Wendy was touching on, which is the community facility space. I really do feel that 12,000 square feet is incredibly minimal given the overall scale and size of the building. And I do hope that we are going to look at it as a full floor, closer to 25,000 square feet and, double height space that could accommodate a gym. And I'm just putting that out there. And you've heard that at the last meeting. So just wanted to say it out in the public realm because I do think that we, as you know, are desperately in need of more community and civic infrastructure in our neighborhoods. We just don't have it. And the more facilities that we're able to provide for our communities to come together, I think the better our community and the stronger our community will be. So I'll leave it at that. And I do see progress, so I want to thank you.
Thank you for that, Rosa.
Thanks, Rosa. We appreciate your comments, and we welcome you to sit down with us and Manny Cantor, as we figure out what the best use is of that space, because I think you have a lot to add to that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, after Rosa was, I believe, Jill Goodkind, who's one of our public members. And then we're going to go, Richard Corman, you're a board member. I'm not sure why you're down there, but that's okay. And then we'll go to Pat after that. There you go, Richard.
Jill, you're muted.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody. My question is two parts. The first and more important part, I think, is that if you could give us a little more information on these set-aside units that you said would be in addition to the 350 already mentioned affordable units. And will the community preference come out of the 350? So what are you looking at in terms of the set-aside, and where will the community preference come out of? That's question number one. Question number two is regarding the making whole thing, which I find very hard to follow. My takeaway from that, and so my question is, correct me if I'm wrong, basically the Port Authority is negotiating an unknown dollar amount for a building that may never have been built, and that's why we don't know the number, because it's going to be whatever you can negotiate. Thank you.
I'll ask Dawana first to just give a clarification on what she described with regards to the affordable housing, and then either Justin or Mike Lavery to speak with regards to the second question.
Sure. I spoke about the community preference as it relates to the 25% of the units that are currently contemplated, which is a little bit over 300 units. The community preference, we will be following the outcome of the case. And if the case is determined in the city's favor, then our hope is that there would be a community preference for 50% of the units. But we will get back to you because there's ongoing litigation, so we cannot make any commitments at this time.
Yeah, and on the second part, it wouldn't be accurate to say that there's no number that's grounding or serving as an anchor for those negotiations. There is. I am not on government relations. A couple of my colleagues who are involved in negotiating are in the audience right now. I don't know if they want to weigh in. I guess they'd have to raise their hand. But I mean, basically, there is the number that we had in mind for what would make this a worthwhile deal. It's not a number that we can share at this time, but it is a number that we'll be able to, we're going to share with the elected officials soon, and we'll figure out, but we really need to present that in the context of the broader discussion on affordable housing, which is how it was posed to us by the elected officials. But no, I would not say that there's just a floating, get what we can get. There is a real grounding in economics that we're doing these negotiations under. I hope that answers the question.
Not, I think, as directly as we're looking for, Justin, just so you know. All right.
Okay.
Jill, anything? I think you're good, right? Richard Corman was next. I think. Pat, did I lose you somewhere? You had your hand up, so I'll come back to you after Richard.
Yes, hi. Thanks for this. Unfortunately, I missed the beginning of the presentation, so I can't really comment on any of it. As you know, a number of us are advocating for 100% affordability, but I just wanted to comment, with all due respect to Vicky. Many of us have perhaps a slightly different view, which is that We want to see a range of affordability, including middle moderate income, but also housing challenged people. We want to have an opportunity to really bring diversity into Lower Manhattan in a way that it's actually been driven out to some degree. And so I personally would not make the argument that people can't afford to live here. I really want to provide an opportunity for many and a wide variety of people to be able to live in this community. And certainly one way we can do that is by having a very substantial number of affordable apartments in this incredibly unique opportunity here. So I just needed to voice that issue as a bit of a counter, Vicky, with apologies, but unfortunately I don't agree with you.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to add this. Perhaps you misunderstand my point. I was advocating for much greater affordability and much greater variety and more of it. Them singling out a group that it has difficulties and just giving us that and saying that's good enough is not what I was accepting. I would like exactly what you said, a much greater variety and many, many more units, because that's what we need in our neighborhood.
Great. Then we're in sync.
Definitely in agreement. I was just making my point that we need more diversity in this neighborhood, especially. Thank you, Richard.
So thank you, Richard, for the question, and thank you, Vicky, again for the clarification. Currently, the 25% of affordable units that are contemplated include a wide range of affordability from 30% to 80% of AMI. We are receiving, as you both just heard, a wide range of requests from the community board, from other stakeholders in the community. We're receiving a wide range of requests, many for deeply affordable units, some for moderate or middle income units. And so we're weighing all of the requests. We're listening to the community, we're taking it all in, and we're investigating a range of options and talking with the state agencies.
And Vicky, just to clarify, I know my slide had listed a specific AMI band and also incomes according to household side, but that was just to provide an example. It wasn't meant to be an exhaustive list of all of the various income bands. That was, again, just to provide an example. So apologies if we misrepresented that information, but we'll continue to do our homework as we've been directed to do. And once we have some more details and substance to provide, we welcome the opportunity to have a more engaged discussion with the community board.
Tammy, I have one little bit from Jill. There's a kind of a dangling part of her question that just needs to be answered. Dawana, the share of affordable units that you would set aside for survivors if you were able to work out some of the elements of federal law. Do you have an idea of what set aside would be there would be if you had your druthers and you could do so?
We don't know yet, and unfortunately, I cannot make any commitments at this time. We're reviewing the law, so I'm sorry I don't have an answer for you today on that.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to recognize two members of the public who have been waiting. We're going to go Victoria and then Todd Fine. I believe for our community board members, if you have already spoken and you do not have a follow-up question, please put your hand down. So Victoria is first and then Todd Fine. And Jill, if you do not have a second question, please put your hand down as well. Thank you.
Victoria, you're unmuted and your time starts now.
Hi, thank you. And thanks so much for being here for your presentation tonight. I'm Victoria Fariello. I'm a district leader downtown, and I'm also a member of 100% of the Coalition for 100% Affordable Housing downtown. And just want to remind you that we have lost thousands of affordable housing downtown, thousands. And this is truly the one opportunity that we have to help make us whole that way. But I'll get to my questions quickly. So I wanted to know if you could give us a sense of the procedural posture that is going on. What are the steps that need to be taken in order for a final decision? Also, what it really has felt like a complete lack of transparency. We have not been engaged. We did not know about the elected officials meeting with the ESD or anyone else. And we'd like to be informed. We'd like to have more participation and more transparency. So I would really love to know what you plan to do to make that happen. And just, you know, this being so late at night, my children are outside waiting for me to put them to bed. This is not helpful. This is not transparency for so many of us. So that's my question.
Thank you for that question, and I appreciate you making the time to be a part of tonight's community board meeting, given your personal and family commitments. I think we can all appreciate the effort that's placed to advocate on behalf of your constituency. With regards to, if I understand your first question, with regards to the procedural posture of where we are, you know, we are still in the early phases of this project, and part of what we pride ourselves on is to have the opportunity to come before the community board. Of course, there's engagement through the CAC, but we've found different ways to be able to come to the community board. You know, it's standard for us across various parts of projects for ESD to meet with elected officials, and not really sure what the avenue would be in terms of advertising or broadcasting that, but you know, I can circle back with the team to see ways in which we can provide those updates. I think, you know, discussing that here publicly at this community board meeting is one avenue, but we can think through that some more. As it relates to the final decision, I think, again, we've just started, you know, to talk through the public approvals process for the project. There'll be actions that will be taken related to just a look at the modifications to the general project plan for the project to allow for there to be residential use on this tower. As I noted earlier, right now the GPP affords for commercial development, and there will need to be a modification to the GPP to allow for residential use. So there's a full process that will take us through a couple of months and well into 2022. I don't know if I can draw a line as to when the finish point would be, but why don't we take that as part of our homework, and to be able to, as we continue our discussions with the elected officials, as we come back to the community board, and as we think creatively about how to ensure public engagement in hours that might be more accommodating to folks in their schedules, we'll be able to give you those updates. So I thank you for that. I understand your concern about there being a lack of transparency, but again, by using the public forum and public platform of the community board and other opportunities that will be afforded to us, we'll hope to continue the public engagement efforts.
Thank you very much. I think we would have loved to have had you first. That lies solely with the responsibilities that we have as a community board for when we lose quorum at a meeting. So for all
I want to thank, I know we're still going through the public comments and questions, but I would like to express a great thanks to your team, Tammy, to Lucian, to Diana, and working with us. You know, we are all still navigating this very unique times that we live in, and there are a number of various scheduling conflicts and, you know, virtual, new hybrid, new normal that we're all adjusting to. So we'll try our best again to make ourselves as available as we can. Again, while we make time to do our homework, prepare the presentations, and also be respectful of your time. So again, just a quick intermission to say thank you, and we appreciate you bearing with us, and it's already 8:38 at night.
And brings us to Todd Fine. Lucian, if you would unmute Todd.
Yep. You're unmuted.
Yes, hello. Yes, hello. I'm also with the Coalition for 100%. Senator Brian Kavanaugh has proposed an open forum for the whole community to discuss 5 World Trade Center. And I think that's an opportunity for community board to do a reset on this entire process. Many of the questions that haven't been answered for 7 months, and I still can't understand why we can have a community board meeting when we had a meeting 5 months ago. We were asked to send written questions. They haven't been answered. That's a total disrespect to this community board. It should not be allowed. And they can't just answer questions, you know, pitter patter throughout the presentation. You have written questions, they receive written responses. That lack of transparency discredits the entire thing. And this meeting was supposed to be an opportunity for the public to engage because they were cut off from the last meeting. Now we have 2 people, it's late at night. This is, again, we need a really full public engagement, which we hasn't had for 7 months. But I have a question. One question is, how many other residential bids did you receive in the RFP process? But my main point is about history, because the architect talked about it said it's going to be a historical reference to that Little Syria neighborhood, basically. Greenwich South is an artificial construction created by the real estate industry. This neighborhood is called Little Syria, the Lower West Side, or Bowling Green Village. We do not accept that artificial term. They talked about 2 buildings in this neighborhood, but we have to keep in mind this building, I wrote a report called Voluntary Destruction since 9/11. 35% of landmarks recommended for designation in this neighborhood have been demolished since 9/11, and there hasn't been any attempt to protect them. We're still trying to protect these very Little Syria buildings they talk about. They talk about that they're encouraged to refer to St. George restaurant. Well, St. George is actually St. George's Syrian Catholic Church. It's part of Arab American heritage. I don't see any reference to that in a glass tower. This is sort of a cultural appropriation. It's disrespectful. The best way to honor the Syrians who went to St. George's Syrian Catholic Church is to build it as affordable housing fully for this low income neighborhood. And the same thing is true for 16 Rector Street, which is they
Mr. Fine, I applaud your ability to be able to speak under such time constraints. Thank you for offering such a range of comments. I will attempt to be as responsive to as many of them as I can. With regards to your note about Senator Kavanaugh discussing an opportunity for there to be a public forum and an open forum on the meeting, we'll be sure to follow up with the Senator's office to discuss that and see what platforms and opportunities would be available for us to work with the elected officials to have such form of public engagement. You've noted that we've answered some of your questions through our various presentations to the community board, that the questions that were submitted to the community board in writing and some have not been answered. I will review the notes and the list of questions that we have. I believe that our past presentation in August had some of the questions that were addressed in writing and the slides that were provided. But again, we'll review that and we'll be sure to be as responsive as best as we can to those questions, not just from your organizations, but from the community board and the public as well. You'd noted a question with regards to how many other residential bids we'd received for the RFP. As I'd noted earlier, because this project and where we're still in the middle of an open procurement, we're not yet able to speak to the number of bids or to the details of some of the responses that we received. At the appropriate time, when we're able to do so, we'll be sure to share those details. You'd noted with regards to the history of Greenwich South and also the neighborhood known as Little Syria. Again, we appreciate that comment. We'll be sure to continue the discussion, as Rob mentioned, as we advance the design of the building. Nothing is final yet. They're still very much in the early stages. And as we get your comment, as we get your feedback, we're incorporating that as best as we can into the confines of the building and the location. Thank you for providing me with that context as it relates to St. George's Restaurant. We'll think of more ways, again, to be able to honor that heritage. I'm sensitive to your note with regards to cultural appropriation, so I choose on a personal note to shy away from that. And as best as we can, we look forward to additional opportunities to be able to engage the community. Like we've said, related to affordable housing, we hear you. DeBar and Omni have a strong history and heritage and responsibility and expertise in developing affordable housing across the city and the state and also on the federal level. So they're closely looking at this and want to be as best responsive to the questions that we've gotten from the community and also the direction that we've received from the elected officials. I hope I've covered as best as I can most of your comments, but again, we welcome the opportunity to continue the ability to come before the community board and to try to the best of our ability to be responsive to the questions and comments that we've received. Tammy, I'll turn it back over to you. I don't know if there are other hands that were raised or other comments that we need to respond to.
You at least I know you can't divulge the details of the bids. Can you at least qualify how many bids were received?
I'm not sure, and as a government employee, I'd like to just be able to go back to the team to confirm what we can and cannot share. Earlier today, and as part of my presentation, I'd noted what the selection committee looked like. It was compiled of representatives from the city, the Port Authority, and ESD. That was information that I was told I was able to share, but for sake of, again, running afoul of direction that I haven't been given, I'll have to come back to the team on that.
That would be great. It is a longstanding question, so I mean, it at least gives us a little bit of
yeah, and so if we can, we'll be able to share the number of bids. I don't know if we can share the details on the bids. Again, wanting to just be careful of where we are in the procurement process, but once we're able to share, we'll be sure to follow up on that. So I'm making a note to myself to confirm the number of minutes.
Thank you. Richard Corman, your hand, this is second round through. So this will be a limited opportunity of a couple people if there are still hands up.
No, that was from before. Sorry.
Fantastic. I'm not sure why Bob Schneck's over in the attendee list, or Laura. They should both
People
be.
who signed in while I was working on the other thing I don't see come on. So Bob, I'm moving you over.
So let me check in with Bob. Please move Laura Starr back over, and let's just ensure that they didn't have questions and I missed them because it looks like they were. Laura, yes, your hand is up.
I just
Your
put
turn.
my, can you hear me? I just put my hand up. No,
You're good.
I just wanted to second what Vicky said about the aesthetics of the building, and you know, I hope that we can have a building that it fits in more with the aesthetic of Lower Manhattan. That's all I wanted to say.
Duly noted. Thank you for that.
I would echo all of that. All right, so I've gotten Laura. Bob Schneck, did you have anything else? And so then Victoria, your hand is still up. Lucian, would you unmute Victoria and see if she has anything else? I have.
Sure. Victoria, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Hi, and thanks. I just wanted to ask if you could give us a date by which you will answer our question, so we know.
I'm not able to give you a date. Again, it would require just me circling back the team. There's some questions that we've already provided answers to, but I, at this moment, can't commit to a date.
Don't worry, Victoria. I'm perfectly happy to help stock.
Tammy has stalked, and we're working through it, but I can offer you fluff, but I won't do that. In all sincerity, we will, as best as we can, provide updates. We take the time to prepare properly for these meetings, and when we can share information, we will, and if we're not able to, we won't.
So I have a couple thoughts that I wanted to put out there before we say thank you and good night. One of the things that we've spoken of was open public space, which I understand you're connecting to the walkway, and that's great. And the community space will be lovely. We talked about active space because it is so cold down here that we used to have, Bob Schneck's hand is up, so I'll go to Bob afterwards. We used to have opportunities that were enclosed years and years ago, like a tennis bubble and other things that were indoor recreation locations that could be active to help with people of all ages. It's one of the things for the community use space. So it does concern me in terms of, as Wendy was indicating, ceiling height, glass, things like that. We don't want to make it so beautiful that it has crystal chandeliers and can't be a multi-purpose use. Potentially, we are drastically short of gym spaces and active rec. We're also drastically short of things for our seniors in the community. And we are obviously hoping some of the affordability.
Thank you, Tammy.
We're hoping that much of the affordability allows the seniors to age in place who are in our community, or quite frankly, I'll be a senior by the time this thing gets built. I'd like to age in place and stay in the neighborhood as everything gets swapped to condos and co-ops, and there is limited, which is part of the structural push that we have for affordable housing. And lastly, I do believe that the building, although somewhat thoughtful to what we've been talking about, I would love to see more integration of more of the historic neighborhood. So it is more contextual on 3 out of 4 of the sides of the building. And it is something more interesting on the south and the west side instead of a flush flat panel. If it's going to truly be able to bridge the old and the new, I don't see that yet. I really appreciate the look on the garage doors over by the loading dock. Yes, you were listening to the things that we said in the CAC meeting about trying to incorporate and make that side of the building more alive, because it is a dark and sort of a unwelcoming location, and everything that this building is adding is not adding any positive aspect in terms of enlivenment and quality of life and streetscape. So that is one small touch, and I appreciate the touch and the listen. We look forward to further opportunities for what that could be. And with that, Bob Schneck, and after Bob, I'm going to close this section.
Okay.
Hi,
Am I on?
You are.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm very interested in this project, but I didn't really know much about it. And I think I came very late to the party, and I very much believe that it's important for us to have as much affordable housing as possible. So I'm in the school of 100%. But I would also like to add that this structure is in a special relationship to what is going to be one of the major performing arts centers in the country. So we're 2.5 blocks away, say, from the Perelman Performing Arts Center. And that's a real opportunity for this structure, at least to have perhaps 2 floors that are dedicated to artist housing and artist projects. And so thank you so much for this chance to participate in this.
Bob, I appreciate that feedback, and that's something that, you know, we'll make note of and continue to think through with the team.
That goes very well into some of the work that Dara's team does with artists in residence and things like that. So that would really be a nice tie-in from the past to the future. So I'm glad Bob brought that up. I do want to say thank you to Mike Lavery and the team from the port for coming and being willing to be here, as well as the architect team and everyone from the housing team. It was very nice of everybody to be here. It was great to start the conversations with the public with more information than we've had in the past. We look forward to a dialogue about Liberty Street and access to this building, because its success in the neighborhood and integration is based on taking a look at what the EIS was, which was incomplete based on what the new usage of this building is. And the EIS did not take into any considerations for outside the immediate area, west of West Street, all the way up through Broadway. And that is super important. So we look forward to all of that. So with that, thank you very, very much for coming. And next time, if it's okay for all of you, I would prefer to do it as a meeting just for you, not within a committee. We can do it as a public hearing, and that way we can start right at 6 o'clock.
Thank you again to the board members. Thank you to Tammy, Lucia, and Diana. We appreciate it, and I hope you all have a successful rest of the meeting and have a good night.
Thanks,
Thank
Tammy.
you very much, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Good night.
You.
Okay, so thank you. While they are disappearing for Community Board 1, we have 2 things left. That's really simple. So I am actually going to ask all the board members to unmute, because I want this as a full dialogue. We have to have a conversation about virtual versus hybrid meetings and where we have been and what we are talking about on a borough board level. We in Community Board 1 have been far more fortunate because we've been able to do, we're one of the first boards up on virtual. We are one of the first boards to be able to accommodate our own needs for hybrid. There are pluses and minuses. We now have the opportunity to the state legislature to stay 100% virtual if we choose to until January. With all of the concerns with the Delta variant and everything that has come up, it was a no-brainer for September. But I want to hear how the committee chairs feel about options looking ahead. There is an opportunity that we stay 100% virtual in alignment with many of the other boards in our borough who are looking for that support, because we are somebody who went hybrid. You know, we are also laying a path on a new, different way to help them get up to speed to where we are. But we don't have to be back in person yet. Either way, my suggestion based on experience from the other boards would be to absolutely do full board virtually, because we don't need to all have 100 people in a room. But committee meetings could be in a large room with a small group. Again, I want to hear from committee people, from what you think as a board. This is not a vote. This is a feeling. And then if the feeling is—
I have a question.
Go for it.
Did you mean after January, or you mean from now until January?
Now until.
Well, now until January, I still like us being remote. I think that many people are still outside of the city. I think people have obligations that they've had since, the pandemic started. I know I do, so I'm being selfish. I'm in Queens with my mom a lot of the time, so this really makes it easier for me to be able to attend not just this meeting and my meeting, but all the meetings. I can go to all the meetings.
I agree.
I agree too.
Yeah, I agree too.
I agree too.
I agree too.
That's true. I think we can all go to more meetings because all we have to do is turn on the computer and, we get a better sense of what's going on in every committee.
Exactly.
Oh.
We come to the full board meeting more prepared also.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hands down, I can't tell you how, I don't sign in often, but I am often lurking online, hearing what's going on, because I find it so much easier to be able to do that while I'm cooking for my own kids. So I get it.
Exactly.
Well, and I think that's true of presenters, and I'm also concerned about quorum. So especially with November, December are pretty terrible because of holidays.
Weather.
I don't want to risk quorum.
You're right, Betty. Yeah, this way we can all join.
And weather, yeah.
And weather and everything, so that makes sense.
I mean, already the licensing committee didn't make quorum and it was remote, so.
Yeah, I also know 2 people who have now had breakthrough COVID. They're fully vaccinated and they were both younger than I am. So
Wow.
I'm incredibly concerned because, I consider myself pretty young, but these are both young people. And the one that was 24 got very sick and she was fully vaccinated. And so I'm scared of it.
Hearing no other people who say, I definitely want to be in person, then that is going to be our plan. Jen and Lucian and Diana and Lucy will put out, we will be virtual through the end of the year. And we will make that plan going
Two
forward.
other things.
I will say that I am making Francis and Mark and all of you on this call, if you do not want to be here on executive committee any longer than have to, you yell at your other friendly, lovely board members to show up at their committee meetings. Because I don't want to, believe me, I don't want to have licensing at executive either. And it was a real bummer because, the work that everybody does in committee is so awesome. We have incredible volunteers. People are really just very generous with their time. Stay for the meeting, make them go faster if you need it.
Tammy, can I
Defense of that particular meeting, I have to say, because I had a conflict because that meeting was changed and I had another meeting that's scheduled every Wednesday at that time that was not changed.
Right.
So
Yep. September is an
I
odd
did the
month.
best I could to split my time between the 2 committees, and came to the meeting late, but that might have been a problem for the month of September, particularly for that committee.
Well, we'll take a look at it, Francis. You can help me brainstorm with Susan and Mark on that. And, we need to make changes if people aren't, loving being on licensing and they want to reinvigorate. I want everybody to have an opportunity to opine and participate in things that bring them passion and things that make them feel good about their volunteerism. So, Betty, do you have any thoughts? I see a hand up, so.
Yes, I'll say transportation also did not reach quorum this month. And I understand this is an off month and that there's so many holidays, but November, December will be the same. But I'm also concerned there are some people who never show up to committee. So I think there needs to be some kind of analysis of either having people go to things that re-energize them and make changes, or just saying, you know what, there's a minimum number of times you have to show up for your committees. Otherwise, you're going to be off and have to move to a different committee that maybe suits your schedule better or your interest better.
Well, quite frankly, we lost a board member, a newly appointed board member. I felt terrible because she was going to be an amazing add. She ended up having to become a public member because her work scheduled a meeting every Tuesday night she had to be at. And the board meetings, 8 out of 12 months a year, are on a Tuesday night. And she's like, I can't make that meeting. And I was like, that's the one, the vote counts. You got to make that one. So, until, quite frankly, until her schedule changes, she became a public member. And in an ideal situation, whenever her work schedule changes, she'll be back as a full board member and I felt terrible, but what was I going to say? All right.
I have a request. Can we get the schedules from now until January?
They are about to be posted through the end of the year.
So we'll have all the months and we can make That way people will know ahead of time and they can schedule. I mean, most meetings are generally on the same night of the month.
Nope,
but, you know.
the schedules are done October, November. I believe December's done. Lucian can correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, I've been, yeah, Lucy loves me.
If I could say a couple words about the hybrid versus remote model, just in times of global pandemic and under normal times, you know, if and this is something that is going to require everyone to keep putting pressure on our state delegation of elected officials and on the governor to continue pursuing reform of the open meeting law. You know, regardless of whether or not there's a pandemic, the open meeting law is clearly outdated. You know, just seeing the technology that exists and the fact that society has learned how to use all these tools effectively and come to count on it. I think that, you know, the hybrid model, when we do return, when there is, you know, less of a fear of danger and sickness, what you'll likely see is a meeting space made available and some people choosing to attend remotely and some people choosing to attend in person, and both remote and in-person people counting for quorum and having their attendance counted. So, you know, that's the reform to open meetings law would make that possible for the times when people do feel safe, and continue to allow the public and whomever else to attend remotely or in person also for their convenience and better participation. So just kind of extrapolating that into the future, but we can't let our guard down. This is just a temporary extension that we're running on right now, and so January 15th, you know, I think it is that date just gives Albany a little bit of time to either do another extension while they begin debate or information, you know, gathering for a real reform bill. But we don't have to wait until January to think about what we like the most about these meetings.
Do we need to write a reso?
I do not need to write a reso because I can make the call on how we do it based on legislature and
No, but I mean going forward after January for January.
We need to pull up the resolution for what we already asked them, modify it based on the current information and push that forward, which we can do at executive next month. But today the dialogue was twofold, really, to have all the committee members line up, to have people understand where we are. Vicky, Paul, and Andrew had hands up.
Yeah.
So
Can I just share a short story that I think will support our mission tonight with 5 World Trade Center and
no.
yeah.
I love you, darling, but no.
Yeah, no, it's architecture.
Give me time at the end, all right?
No, it's an architecture anecdote.
At the end, let's keep on this topic with meeting.
Oh, I thought you finished. I'm sorry.
Paul, your hand is up.
Okay. I was just going to get back to the issue of people not showing up and not getting quorums at some of these meetings. I really think we have to take a hard line on that. We have to see what's in the bylaws about people's attendance. It's not fair to the people who show up to these meetings and spend hours there, and then they're basically wasting their time. And it's also not fair to the executive committee members. I mean, we have plenty of work, all the people on this committee, and we didn't sign up to be in charge of liquor licenses as well. So I just think, I hate to throw it on you, but in the past, the chair has written stern letters to board members when they have a hard time with attendance, just telling them you got to shape up or ship out.
Paul, I've already shipped out several. So yeah, it's in progress. I need to not ship out anybody else until I get the new appointments back in. So, you know, we got to make sure that we have some sense of numbers. I'll put it that way. But yes, Paul, that is in progress. Have no fears. And I have been shipping out as we've gone along.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And call that a warning shot over the bow for anybody who wanted to show up to their meeting. Andrew and then Rosa.
So I think you pretty much addressed it. I was going to ask if this is an enforcement issue, but now hearing the response, I'm also wondering if it's a communication issue. Does everyone on the board understand what the meeting requirements are, meaning what percentage they need to? Okay.
Yep, you do. But some people, you know, there's a couple board members who are on a couple too many committees that are about to be very surprised because they're going to be cut back down. And if you can't participate, then you need to take a step off. We've offered a couple people. There's no such thing as taking a vacation from the community board. There is no such thing as a temporary timeout. It is what it is. So yes, everyone does know. And I think we gave people the month of July as a mulligan because we were like, you know what? We didn't know we were coming back in person until the last second. And that was just ridiculous by the city and ridiculous by the state. So I wouldn't count July against anybody, but everybody knew coming into the fall where we were. And so September, not happy. Everyone knows October, November, December. And if you can't get your stuff in gear, you need to get off the board. It's going to be very simple. So, yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Rosa and Laura.
Just to follow up on what Paul was saying, I believe I remember that the bylaws state that you are actually allowed no more than 2 absences.
Don't worry, I'll be happy to share the bylaws back with everybody. If anybody's curious, email Lucian, you can have a copy of them.
Okay.
Tammy, I was just wondering, I mean, we seem to have so many heavy duty issues down here. And no, really, I mean, I just
people out, I will tell you that.
Well, I just wonder if that's one of the factors. I mean, I have to say personally, because I've had COVID and I'm like a long hauler, like for me, this is already past my bedtime and, you know, like I'm here, but I know it's hard to make the meetings shorter, but I liked your idea for the 5 World Trade Center of having a special hearing just on that. And I really feel like the Seaport is in that category, you know, the 250 Water Street and, you know, there's
the best we could to try and do some solo topics.
Uh-huh.
Some of it is based on their scheduling. So
I know.
for example, we attempted to have them come at many different opportunities, and this is, you know, the ones that they chose. And my thought process was better to have the entire team from 5 World Trade Center than to have people lit on fire, to have a designer and then not have the Port Authority talk about Liberty Street and not have anybody else talk about affordability. Like
right.
them all in one space, and this is the date they chose. Getting them to coordinate with our schedules for what is opportunity has been difficult this month due to the holidays. Going forward, again, if the CAC meetings were public, it certainly wouldn't be an issue, and we've already asked that 5 million ways to Sunday, but
and the 5 World Trade Center, like, does that get posted on a website the way the Battery Park City Authority posts the resilience presentations on their website so that you can really digest them and be prepared?
They will not do that. The only things that are posted are the things that they share here by the community board.
We'll post it though, right?
We post everything.
Yep.
But I mean, to see it ahead of time would be.
Wouldn't that be so nice? That
yeah.
speaks to transparency and openness, right?
Well, we've asked, so that's one of those asks that's out there.
And my other question is about the virtual. You know, when we were meeting in person, it seemed like the meetings had to end at a certain time, but with virtual, they don't. And like I mean, how do you think we're going to go on a meeting time diet if and when we ever get back to meeting in person? Like, how will that?
So we reduced the public session, and right now the public has 2 minutes to comment. That's it. If you remember, we were in person, we used to be able to group people. So if there are people who wanted to speak, we asked you not to repeat, and we would note that everybody was there. We've attempted to do that virtually online.
It's hard.
People online seem to feel that they need to have their 2 minutes. So it's very difficult. I do not need to have everybody speak. And this is why we only let board members, when it came to 5 World Traders, speak once. We go through everybody and then come back. So that's the protocol we're taking going forward. Elected reps, we're told they get 3 minutes. So that's kind of where we're going, is we're trying to now go for time limits, and we're going to try and apply the same theory to meeting discussions on topics. And Colin, who has been asking numerous times, saying that he would like to make a motion to limit debate, will be doing that more often in the fall. And so if a motion is made to limit debate to 10 minutes or 15 minutes, then that's all you get, if it's accepted. So there we go. Those are the plans going for people. Now, for this meeting, for committee reports, this is a lovely reminder.
I still had my hand up.
Sorry, Pat, go.
That's okay.
I want to say something before I.
Well, first of all, I mean, everyone's talking about having individual meetings. We only have X amount of days on our calendars per month. So that's one thing to consider. And we already have, quite a few committee meetings scheduled for the month. That's number one. Number two, tonight with World Trade Center, I know lots of people said they wanted to come and talk and hear the topic, which, by the way, they were supposed to come to Quality of Life, and it was going to be a dedicated meeting to just that topic. But how many people did we have in the public that didn't get a chance to speak tonight on the World Trade Center 5?
We told people not to come to, I think.
Justine, she asked me, I'm answering. Anybody who signed up tonight got to speak. If people made a decision prior to that they did not want to come, or other people took their place, that happened outside the meeting. I can only control what we have inside the meeting.
Right, so people got a chance to speak tonight. So it isn't as though people who came didn't get a chance to talk. All right, that's all I want to know. Thanks.
You're welcome. Justine, your hand is up. Justine, go.
I'm mute. Yeah, sorry. No, I was just going to say that when we saw how it was set up, we told people not to come because they were so angry last time. So we said, please consolidate, give your stuff in. That's why Todd, I think, spoke so quickly. He had a lot to say. He tried to consolidate a lot of people's stuff in. But no, you did call on everybody. I didn't mean to
this is the best
indicate. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, this is the best we can do. I think about all the times, if you think about all the hot and heavy topics where we had, hundreds of people come and want to speak, and they grouped themselves.
Yes.
That is a far more effective way to have somebody say, even if everybody signs up and somebody says, I cede my time too, and then it's one person talking for 5 minutes instead of 3 people talking for 6 minutes, I'm okay for that.
Yeah.
And we've always said that we're willing to work with the community, but there is an end, which reminds me, because I'm now going to end this topic. Committee reports. The only thing that I need in this meeting for committee reports is to understand if anything exploded in your committee meeting and was virally hot. And the reason why is if it was very hot in your committee, it's going to be really hot at the full board. And we need to take a look and balance how hot everybody is to be opening and closing. People complain, why do we have a hot topic at the end? Because then I know I have quorum till the end of the meeting. We try and keep the hot topics in the beginning, hot topics at the end, and move the middle. So that's kind of where we're at. And does anybody have any questions on that?
So Tammy, Wendy, you can come back. My hand raising doesn't work. So if you have other people in the queue.
You go first because everybody else's hands are up. Have not taken them down from before.
Okay, thank you. At the environmental committee meeting, maybe you have an update about the extension. Did that come through from the state or did it not? Or, they said they would take it back. I think that's a hot topic.
We
So
have,
you know more.
as of 5 o'clock today, I have no good update to share.
Okay, thank you.
And you know, the only good update that is, in my perspective, good is an extension.
Correct. So I that is a hot topic, but it is what it is. So thank you.
Rosa, your hand is up. We'll go Rosa, Andrew, Vicky.
Get down now.
Awesome. Andrew? Down. Vicky, you're on.
I wanted to share a little story that will hopefully encourage and keep us working about 5 World Trade Center and staying determined to get what we want. I don't know if any of you have seen what's called the Art Gallery of Ontario, the AGO. That building, if you see the image of it, I'll tell you now, is a Frank Gehry project. And when I first went, at an occasion, I met him and there was a discussion. How did this incredible building come out, which is very much not like, in many ways, like the rest of his buildings? How is it so site specific? And his comment was that after much work with an incredibly sophisticated client like the Thompson family, they asked him to work in a language that was conducive to the climate, to the city, to the history. Anyway, my point is that if we as a community stick to our guns, and we are a sophisticated client, we know what we want, and if we stick to it, we force the architect to work hard. We don't need another commercial glass tower, like I said, just like the Hudson Yards. There is a way to force these people to give us a spectacular project. And I encourage you all to look at the AGO. The outside is magic, but the inside is even more beautiful. And that just supports our hard work. That's all I want to say.
Go, Vicky. Hear, hear.
Thank you, Laura. I know you understand.
I totally am with you so
Vicky,
much.
Send the link to that building so we can forward that also back to those lovely folks at 5.
Oh, I sure will.
Tammy, I raised my hand for a quick question when you have a minute.
Yep. Go.
I have to go. Good night, everyone. It was so good to see you. See you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you tomorrow. Good night, Vicky.
Bye, Vicky.
And after Justine, I'm going to make a motion to adjourn.
Perfect. I know my quick question is.
But not after I talk about the budget, just a little bit.
Crap.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. But my quick question is, when we're presenting, remind me again of the time that you'd like us to stick to in the full board meetings. Is it like 5 minutes for no resolution and 10 minutes for resolution, or what's the deal? I forget. Or
5 minutes if you only have reports, and that's not 5 minutes per report.
correct, total.
It's going to be 5 minutes for your reports, which means understand that you're not going to be able to get through if you have 25 slides. That's not going to work.
Don't worry about that. Yeah.
Pace yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When you have resolutions, it would be ideal if we could do it in 10 minutes. Licensing is never going to happen that way. But, you have to, if you had 5 minutes of dialogue, presenting your resolution and discussion, and then we voted, that's great, because the real hard stuff should happen in committee.
Right. That's what I recall. Okay. 5 and 10 is the goal. Thank you.
That's the gold standard. If we get, think of it this way, 8 committees, 15 minutes, it's a 4-hour meeting. Yeah. Lucian, take us home quickly, please.
Okay, well, the budget, so important. This is one of the pillars of community board service, right up there with land use and providing a public forum. The city budget is a process that community boards kick off. We've just recently finished our borough budget consultations. I will be packaging and distributing the notes from those consultations to all the members. But the most pressing thing that I need everyone to do now is to look in the chat. I posted a link. I've sent this link out. It's budget.mcb1.nyc. Just like the the open meetings portal is live.mcb1, this is budget.mcb1. So please visit the site, read through it, see what we've requested for the operating and capital budgets from last fiscal year, fiscal year 22. We're looking forward to fiscal year 23 now. and we want to make sure that we are up to date. We're already needing to edit what was posted last year, what with Governor's Island now being year round. We can, Betty pointed out that we can knock that one off the list. So, it's a work in progress. We have one more month to finalize this, and this work hopefully should be done in committee. So we're not kind of stuck with, this being kind of like the last thing in executive, and then, everyone wants to go home, go to bed, or not go home, but go to bed. So I really urge everyone to do what we can in committee in October. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. These are discussions that just have to be done in committee, or else the product and the executive is going to be hurried through. And what we send to the agencies for requests is not going to be as good as it could be. So that's my plea. I'm here as a resource for everyone else. Please take a look at that link. It has lots of resources in it. And thanks to everyone who has been pushing this, thinking about it, and looking forward to hearing more about your ideas for the budget for fiscal year 23. Thanks, Tammy. I'm done.
I'm almost afraid to ask, does anybody have any questions?
No.
Great.
Good
Motion to
Good
motion to
night.
9:20.
Second your motion.
Thank you and good night, everybody.
Good night,
Thanks
everybody.
all.